Soon, Jian Wushuang led by the black armored guard came before Master Kuan and the purple-robed middle-aged man. Jian Yi is pleased to meet Master Kuan. I've heard of Master Kuan's name for a long time. Jian Wushuang gave a slight bow and spoke politely. In fact, he had only heard of Master Kuan after he arrived at Qingxiao City. You're so humble. Please have a seat. Master Kuan waved his hand. Jian Wushuang sat down on a chair nearby. Both Master Kuan and the purple-robed middle-aged man had noticed Jian Wushuang's true cultivation the moment he stepped into the hall. Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was indeed outstanding, but his realm was too weak. He could disguise himself well before a half-step divine demon realm, but he fell short before a real full-fledged divine demon realm, especially someone at a second-class divine demon realm. They could see clearly that Jian Wushuang indeed only possessed the cultivation level of middle-stage chaotic realm. Can a middle-stage chaotic realm really kill a half-step divine demon realm? Both Master Kuan and the middle-aged man were thinking in their heads. I've never heard of your name. Who is your master? Asked Master Kuan. Neither do I belong to any school nor any master, answered Jian Wushuang with a smile. He then stood up and said, Master Kuan, truth to be told, I am here to ask for Master Kuan's help in crafting a piece of treasure. Master Kuan exchanged looks with the purple-robed middle-aged man before asking, What treasure is it? It's a life armor. Master Kuan should know about it, said Jian Wushuang. Both Master Kuan and the purple-robed middle-aged man were instantly moved when they heard of the life armor. It was a piece of treasure that represented a cultivator's life and effort. It could also grow together with the cultivator, unleashing his unlimited potentials. It required a large number of precious treasures and an exceptional craft master to make it. Wuxia Wilderness was just an unremarkable small place within the ancient god domain. It was an arduous task to craft a life armor here. Therefore, Master Kuan was startled after knowing that Jian Wushuang was going to craft a life armor. I see. Do you want to craft the life armor for yourself, or? Master Kuan was curious. I want it for myself, Jian Wushuang replied straightforwardly. He was telling the truth. Among the 5 most powerful secret skills of the 7-star Black Sect, the 9 Sparkle Star Armor was an extremely powerful secret skill. Unfortunately, to cultivate this secret skill, one would need a life armor of his own. That was why Jian Wushuang was unable to get started with the secret skill until then. Back then in Anzhou Commandery, it was almost impossible for him to craft his life armor due to the limited resources available. After arriving at Narcissus Island, he took the opportunity to ask Elder Wujin if craft masters in Narcissus Island had the ability to craft a life armor, but he was again disappointed. He could only continue looking for other opportunities. In Qingxiao City within Luogu territory, he came to visit Master Kuan right after hearing about his name. Do you know how hard it is to craft a life armor? Master Kuan looked at Jian Wushuang. To craft a life armor, it does not only require a lot of rare and precious treasures. It also needs a cultivator's strong essence and blood, and an exceptional craft master. These 3 are indispensable. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. His expression was unperturbed. That is exactly why I come to you, Master Kuan, today. I don't know if you have the ability to craft a life armor. Do you? Master Kuan frowned. He pondered for a moment before saying, My little friend, truth to be told, you will need a minimum of a 4th-grade craft master to craft a life armor. Such a highly skilled craft master might be common in the entire ancient god domain, however, I believe there are not more than 3 in Wuxia Wilderness. Someone such as this is definitely a rare existence. There were a total of 9 grades of craft master in the ancient god domain. Yet a 4th-grade craft master was scarce in Wuxia Wilderness. My friend Jenny, there are indeed no more than 3 craft masters who have reached the 4th grade in the entire Wuxia Wilderness, but Master Kuan, who is standing in front of you now, happens to be one of them, said the purple-robed middle-aged man suddenly. Master Kuan also gave a confident smile. In that case, Master Kuan, will you craft this life armor? Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. He was there to try his luck because he knew very well that it was an uphill task. Fortunately, he did not make the trip in vain. Although I have not been at the 4th grade for long, I am indeed a 4th-grade craft master. I have never tried making the life armor, so there is a high possibility to fail on the very first try. If you would like me to make the life armor, I am afraid that you will need to prepare more materials for me to work with, said Master Kuan. I understand. What are the treasures needed for making a life armor? Asked Jian Wushuang. Master Kuan thought in silence momentarily before speaking slowly. For portions of red sun secret essences, 5 red blood fruits, 2 drops of purple shimmer, 100 pieces of spectacular beast scales, and finally 10,000 caddies of celestial iron ore. Collect all these materials, and if your own essence and blood can meet the requirements, I promise to craft a life armor for you. Jian Wushuang was indifferent even after hearing what Master Kuan said. But the purple-robed middle-aged man was completely astounded. He was shocked to hear the long list of materials listed down by Master Kuan. Red sun secret essence, red blood fruit, purple shimmer, spectacular beast scales are all extremely rare treasures in Wuxia wilderness. Especially purple shimmer. There are perhaps only a total of 5 drops to be found in the entire Wuxia wilderness. Yet 3 drops were needed to make the life armor. As for celestial iron ore, some ordinary sects will keep some in storage. It was nothing too precious, but to gather 10,000 caddies was unheard of. Even if top sects such as the Great Compassionate sect tried to collect it, they might need a long time to gather up to 10,000 caddies. Is that all? Jian Wushuang raised his head and glanced at Master Kuan. These are the only items needed, but these items are not easy to find. Well, it is difficult to find them in Wuxia wilderness, my friend. Master Kuan had not finished his sentence when he was disrupted. This is my message token. I will send you all the materials within 3 years. I will also prepare a generous gift for you as a reward, and I hope that I will have a life armor of my own. Jian Wushuang handed his message token to Master Kuan. Then, he took a deep gaze at Master Kuan before he turned and left. After Jian Wushuang left, Master Kuan and the purple-robed middle-aged man in the hall had a strange look on their faces. Master Kuan, do you think the young man was teasing you? Asked the purple-robed middle-aged man curiously. Any single item on the long list of precious treasures mentioned by Master Kuan was enough to cause an uproar within the Wuxia wilderness. But when Jian Wushuang heard about them, he remained a straight face as if they were nothing special. Master Kuan shook his head. No. Someone from the middle-stage chaotic realm wouldn't have the courage to tease me like that. Even if he dared to do so, I would be able to discover his flaws. I've lived for so many years and dare say that I'm rather accurate in judging someone. Despite his young age, the man gave me an ambiguous feeling when he stood before me just now. It was impossible for me to read him. Moreover, he was too calm just now, or I should say he was overconfident. That kind of confidence made me believe that it's possible for him to bring me those precious treasures within 3 years. Then again, those items are extremely rare. It might be possible to gather 1 or 2 of them. However, to collect all of them in such huge quantities. The purple-robed middle-aged man frowned. I don't have to worry about that. If he could bring me all those precious treasures, I'll help him make his life armor. I've nothing to lose if he fails. Master Kuan smiled. That's true. The purple-robed middle-aged man understood it. Jian Wushuang's heart was heavy after leaving Master Kuan's mansion. Red sun secret essence, red blood fruit, purple shimmer, spectacular beast scales, and celestial iron ore. Among all these items, I've only heard of the celestial iron ore, which is something extremely valuable. I can see from the expressions of the purple-robed middle-aged man that the other 4 items are also a rare find. I am afraid that it will not be easy for me to get all these items. Jian Wushuang mumbled under his breath. He knew very well that the life armor was not something easy to make. In his eternal chaotic world's previous life, Emperor Bai was able to make a life armor because the eternal chaotic world had many valuables that were left behind since the ancient times. Many precious treasures could be found from the ancient battlefields, so it was possible for Emperor Bai to gather those treasures. As for the craft master, Jian Wushuang was guessing that Emperor Bai might have asked Master Xuani to do it. Nonetheless, it was really difficult to find those treasures in Wuxia wilderness. Not to worry. I might not be able to find them now, but as long as my power is restored to its peak, I could do as I wish in Wuxia wilderness. It should be a lot easier to find those treasures at that time, Jian Wushuang murmured. The reason he told Master Kuan that he would bring those treasures in 3 years' time was that he knew that his power would be restored to its peak after 3 years. Once his power was restored, and if he could not get his hands on those treasures, he would leave Wuxia wilderness, never having to deal with Master Kuan ever again. Once I have the life armor, I can cultivate the 9 sparkle star armor. At that time, my power will level up. Unfortunately, I'll have to wait. After that day, Jian Wushuang spent his time in the inn where he lived. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Soon, it was the day when the large auction in Xianxia City was held. Countless experts in Xianxia City had made their ways to the auction. As for the 100-flower tower, it was a little deserted as compared to its merry atmosphere on usual days. Xiao Hong and his people were ready to carry out their plan. Suspended in the void outside 100-flower tower, Xiao Hong and his people, including Jian Wushuang, carefully converged their auras. According to what is expected, the 100 Flowers Tower is weakly guarded today. The second-class divine demons who usually guard 100 Flowers Tower have gone to the auction. Miss Xiao had lured the first-class divine demon that was hidden in 100 Flowers Tower away. In other words, 100 Flowers Tower was left with only some ordinary third-class divine demons and chaotic realms. Xiao Hong stared at the 100 Flowers Tower in the distance, and his eyes could not contain his excitement. I suppose Miss Xiao is ready for us now. Let's do this. Xiao Hong reached an agreement with the 4 core disciples. Xiao Hong turned to look at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, your task is to stay here and be on the lookout for us. If something happens or some experts come our way, you will have to alert me immediately. Understood. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Xiao Hong and the disciples thought very little of him, hence only made him a watchman, which so happened that he was not keen to participate in their activities. Let's go. Xiao Hong waved his hand and the 5 core disciples from Narcissus Island advanced towards 100 Flowers Tower, whereas Jian Wushuang stood in the void quietly watching. He shook his head when he saw that Xiao Hong and others cautiously snuck into 100 Flowers Tower. These core disciples of Narcissus Island are still too young after all. How can this task be as simple as they thought? Although he was cognizant, he chose not to say much and just do what he was told. It did not take long for 100 Flowers Tower to be in a ruckus, and at the same time a surge of divine power effluxed from within. It seems like the fight has begun. Jian Wushuang was watching with interest. There were constant roars and tumultuous coming from the 100 Flowers Tower. Although the tower was left with no first-class and second-class divine demons, it never lacked ordinary third-class divine demons which were enough to bring great resistance against Xiao Hong and his people. Besides that, experts that scattered all over Xianxia City would soon be aware of the scuffle in 100 Flowers Tower and made their way back to the tower. Hence Xiao Hong and the other disciples were left with a short window of time to act. However simple-minded Xiao Hong and the other disciples were, they were competent core disciples of Narcissus Island and were skillful in combat despite being only in third-class divine demons. They were top-tier third-class divine demons, especially Xiao Hong. When Xiao Hong went all out with his powers, he was comparable to an ordinary second-class divine demons. Not long after the 5 of them work hand in hand. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The 5 figures came dashing out from 100 Flowers Tower and frantically headed towards the outer city. Jian Wushuang, hurry up! Xiao Hong sent a message to Jian Wushuang. Looks like they've made it. Not too bad after all. Jian Wushuang grinned while his figure floated away to the outer city. Shortly after Xiao Hong and others left 100 Flowers Tower, a large group of figures emerged behind them from the tower. How dare these people abduct someone from my 100 Flowers Tower? Go after and kill them all. Be careful. Miss Xiao is still in their hands. A swarm of figures frantically went after Xiao Hong and the others. It was late at night. The moonlight dimmed. In a jungle far away from Xianxia City, Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples of Narcissus Island sat on the ground, convalescing their divine power after the fight. They all looked tired. It was nothing to break into 100 Flowers Tower, fight against the experts, and save Miss Xiao then escaping from the tower. However, they were chased after by a huge group of pursuant who wanted their lives. They fled from Xianxia City all the way to where they were while having gone through several obstacles and hard battles along the way. They even fought against second-class divine demons, but fortunately, they managed to escape. Finally, we have dumped those people. There was a glimmer of hope on Xiao Heng's face as he instinctively darted a look at the veiled woman beside him. Miss Xiao was wearing an ordinary tight-fitting robe that accentuated her perfect figure. The moonlight created a mysterious effect on her, which made her appear even more attractive. She stood there quietly, not saying a word. Xiao Heng involuntarily swallowed a gulp of saliva and at the same time was relieved. Although they encountered a lot of troubles today, they succeeded in rescuing the beauty. Suddenly, a slight cracking sound emerged. Who was that? All 5 of the Xiao Heng's party abruptly stood up in vigilance. Brothers, it's me. Jian Wushuang's figure appeared in front of the 5 along with his laughter. Jian Wushuang. Xiao Heng glanced over at Jian Wushuang. Back at Qingxiao City, the 5 of them took Miss Xiao and fled the scene. They had sent a message to Jian Wushuang and told him to leave quickly, but did not travel together. Little had they expected that Jian Wushuang would catch up with them. Miss Xiao. Jian Wushuang peeked at Miss Xiao. That is very polite of you. Miss Xiao was being lovely as usual. Well, now that we have rescued Miss Xiao and escaped from the charging parties, let us all get some rest and recuperate before returning to Narcissus Island, said Xiao Heng. The 4 core disciples became relaxed. However, Jian Wushuang shook his head in disagreement. Brothers, I'm afraid that things aren't as simple as what you think. What do you mean? Xiao Heng questioned in a deep voice that was seemingly unhappy. Don't you think that things were progressing too smoothly? Asked Jian Wushuang while still smiling. Xiao Heng sneered. Too smooth? You weren't with us and had no idea how dangerous the situations were just then. Of course, you thought that it went on smoothly. That's right. It was easy for you to say. If you were with us just now, I'm afraid you would have died. A core disciple next to him jeered. Jian Wushuang raised his brows. In fact, he was close behind Xiao Heng and the others and saw what they had been through. They were in a fair bit of trouble, but it was a far cry from real danger as things were going rather smoothly. Then again, he had done his part to remind them. He could not be bothered if Xiao Heng and the rest took his words lightly. Someone is coming, Jian Wushuang suddenly announced. Ha! Xiao Heng and the others were on their toes. At the same time, their soul powers had allowed them to sense the massive aura appearing in the void near them. There are a lot of people and they're here for us. Xiao Heng's expression changed almost instantly. Just as he wanted to retreat, the opponents were already moving at top speeds and appeared in front of them in the blink of an eye. Swoosh! 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 There were more than a dozen figures appeared before them. Those people's auras and powers were intimidating. Among the dozen people, there were powerhouses beyond the divine demon realm, with 4 being second-class divine demons. Damn it! We're in deep shit. How could this be? Haven't we dumped those pursuing troops from 100 Flowers Tower? Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples' faces became extremely ugly. The 5 of them were powerful nonetheless, but they had no chance against the strong lineup of 4 second-class divine demons and a dozen of third-class divine demons. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes as he studied the group of experts surrounding them. These people are not from the 100 Flowers Tower. Jian Wushuang was tailing the Xiao Heng's group. He knew for sure that they had escaped the pursuing troops from 100 Flowers Tower. The ones that appeared before them. Fellow friends from Narcissus Island, don't worry. We're from the Mu clan. A clear and crisp voice came from the mouth of a second-class divine demon. He was an elder with white hair. The old man had a rattled look with seemingly cloudy eyes and a gentle smile. Mu clan. Xiao Heng was relieved and was soon overcome with joy. We came with orders from the Mu clan head to bring the second miss home. This is a token from the Mu clan. You can have a look at it. The white-haired old man threw a token toward their direction. Xiao Heng took it and examined it carefully before nodding. It's indeed a token from the Mu clan. Why do you need Narcissus Island to carry out the rescue mission if the Mu clan had sent such a strong party over? I'm unable to explain the reasons to you. In short, now that we are here, we'll be responsible for the safety of the second miss. All of you can return to Narcissus Island, said the white-haired old man. Xiao Hong and the other core disciples exchanged looks of hesitation. If they had rescued an ordinary person, they would happily hand that person to the Mu clan and return to Narcissus Island. However, the one that they had just rescued was none other than the beautiful Miss Xiao, who had completely captured the hearts of Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples. The group of 5 were reluctant to leave Miss Xiao. Your Excellency, how about this? Let us join your group to the Mu's residence. My brothers and I'll leave as soon as we see that Miss Xiao had safely stepped into the Mu's residence. Xiao Hong suggested. That might not be feasible. I think you should just return to Narcissus Island. The white-haired old man kept a smile on his face. Xiao Hong could sense that something was wrong. Not only did those people from the Mu clan appear strangely out of nowhere, they even insisted on escorting Miss Xiao and refused the company of Xiao Heng's group, hence raising his suspicions. You are not from the Mu clan, Xiao Hong roared. The 4 core disciples immediately took out their weapons and stood ready. Jian Wushuang shook his head when he heard Xiao Hong. I think you are wrong. These people are indeed from the Mu clan. However, if I'm not wrong, they aren't here to bring Miss Xiao home. Instead, they're here to make sure Miss Xiao will never return to the Mu's residence. What? Xiao Heng's face changed. Are they here to kill Miss Xiao? Jian Wushuang glanced at Miss Xiao, who was next to him, and was certain that he got it right when he noticed the chilliness in her eyes. How could this be right? Isn't Miss Xiao the second miss of the Mu clan? Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples were in disbelief. This world isn't as simple as you think. Jian Wushuang chuckled. He had lived for nearly 100,000 years in his previous life and had been through the thick and thin of life. He had experienced all kinds of conspiracies, overt and covert fights. He was not surprised to see what was going on with the Mu clan. The space-time is sealed. It seems that you came well prepared. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. The space-time was sealed? Xiao Hong and other disciples were shocked. They took out their message tokens immediately to transmit a message to their high-ups in Narcissus Island and realized their message could not be sent out. The space-time was sealed. In his previous life, eternal chaotic world space-time was so weak that some chaotic realms could easily seal time-space. The same could not be said in ancient God domain. Under the Heavenway's will, space-time was strictly controlled. One must either be an expert of space-time law or apply a formation skill to seal space-time. The Mu clan was obviously using the latter, which was the power of a formation skill. What a pity! If you make a move just now, there would not be any trouble at all. However, you've made the wrong decision and chose to remain here. The gentle smile on the white-haired old man's face had completely receded and was replaced by endless iciness. Initially, we thought of merely using the forces of Narcissus Island to our advantage. We had never planned to go against you people. But things have changed now. The white-haired old man was murmuring to himself. Even a stupid person would have known their intentions by now. So, the Mu clan was merely using Narcissus Island to save Miss Xiao? Your real intention is to put her to death. Xiao Heng's voice was cold. The white-haired old man snorted coldly. A lowly servant gave birth to her. How dare she think she could have a place in the Mu clan? Dream on. She should have died more than 10 years ago. For some reason, she was lucky. The people in the 100 Flowers Tower didn't kill her. Instead, they kept her and she gradually rose to fame. It wasn't until recently that the Mu clan learned that she is still alive. Since we have received such news, we have to find a way to completely wipe her out. After all, she is the second miss of the Mu clan and we can't overtly get rid of her. We had to pretend to want to rescue her and get help from Narcissus Island. She only has one final ending, which is of course death. It's just a pity that you, fellow core disciples from Narcissus Island, are going with her. Xiao Hong and his group of people were furious to hear about that. They had finally understood the conspiracies. The Mu clan never intended to rescue the second Mississippi. They wanted to secretly get rid of her. The rescue mission was just a facade. Miss Xiao, don't worry. We will not allow the Mu clan to hurt you one bit. Xiao Hung placed himself in front of Miss Xiao with his face flushed in anger. The 4 core disciples followed suit. You're looking for trouble. The white-haired old man smiled wryly. He ordered as he waved his hand. Kill them. Boom. A dozen tyrannical auras simultaneously erupted. Besides the white-haired old man, the rest of the dozen experts from Mu clan had started fighting. A gush of divine power oppressed Xiao Hung and his people, rendering them unable to catch a breath. Protect Miss Xiao, Xiao Hung roared. His strength and power completely exploded, and he immediately wielded it against the Mu clan's expert in front of him. The 4 core disciples had also gone crazy. With space-time being sealed, their messages could not be transmitted at all, hence it was almost impossible to escape. They could only fight with all their might for a survival chance. Go, Joel. Go. Even if I had to die, I won't let you hurt Miss Xiao. Xiao Hung and the other disciples were completely crazy and desperate. Brothers, take the goo blood elixir. Xiao Hung yelled while being engrossed in the fight before a pill appeared in his hand and he swallowed it. The 4 core disciples looked determined. They also took out the same pill and swallowed it. The goo blood elixir was a kind of pill that could boost one's divine power in a short period of time. The downside was that it carried a severe side effect. As soon as the pill's effect wore out, one would fall into a period of weakness and needed a month or 2 to recuperate. The pill was given to the core disciples of Narcissus Island to save their lives. Each core disciple was given one such pill and they could use it at a critical juncture. The group of 5 had taken the goo blood elixir. Even though they were only third-class divine demons, their combat power became terrifying as the elixir's effect kicked in. The 4 core disciples almost reached the level of second-class divine demons. The strongest of them, Xiao Hung, had spectacular swordsmanship. With the elixir's help, he was at an advantage even when fighting single-handedly against 2 second-class divine demons. The other 4 core disciples also used various skills to set up obstacles for the Mu clan's expert, stopping them from approaching. Jian Wushuang, take Miss Xiao away while we fight these Mu clan's experts. Xiao Hung barked out the order. He had no other choice but to place his hope on Jian Wushuang. After all, he and the 4 core disciples had given their best to parry off the attacks from Mu clan's experts. Only Jian Wushuang was able to freely move around and was the only hope in taking Miss Xiao away. Jian Wushuang, take Miss Xiao away now. The 4 core disciples were also screaming on top of their lungs. Hearing those distraught voices, Jian Wushuang shook his head but did not move at all. How stupid! This woman has bewitched them such that they are willing to sacrifice everything for her, even their own lives. Is it really worth it? Jian Wushuang sneered as he peered at Miss Xiao who was next to him. Miss Xiao was still covered with a veil, but she was shaking in fear. She looked all frightened and in trepidation, causing many to want to protect her at the sight of her fearfulness. Miss Xiao, what do you think after seeing all my senior brothers who had fallen head over heels for you to the point of will to sacrifice their lives to protect you? Asked Jian Wushuang with a smile. Master, what do you mean? Miss Xiao met his gaze with a hint of mockery in her eyes. It was a different emotion from the fear she displayed a while ago. The battle persisted with incredible intensity. Xiao Hung and the 4 core disciples were in a craze, trying all they could to keep away Mu clan's experts. They did their best to buy time for Jian Wushuang and Miss Xiao. However, neither Jian Wushuang nor Miss Xiao made a move under such a situation. In fact, they were still interacting casually. Miss Xiao, you should be able to tell by now that Narcissus Island has no special relationship with Mu clan. It was purely Mu Chan's plan to use us. Now they even want to make all of us stay, said Jian Wushuang. Young master, what exactly are you trying to say? Said Miss Xiao calmly. What I want to say is that Narcissus Island and Mu clan have nothing to do with each other. So I beg you to have mercy later, said Jian Wushuang, having a deeper meaning behind his words. Miss Xiao's beautiful eyes were shining with surprise after hearing his words. Miss Xiao said slowly only after a while, For me to show mercy isn't out of the question, but I'll have to see if you're worthy. What would you like to have in return? Asked Jian Wushuang calmly. These Mu clan members really annoy me, said Miss Xiao with sheer lightness. Understood, Miss Xiao. Just watch, said Jian Wushuang. They did not hide their conversation, since even if people heard them, nobody would understand what they talked about. However, Xiao Heng and his company were already furious. Jian Wushuang, what the hell are you waiting for? Move it. Those words came from Xiao Heng as a roar. He and the 4 core disciples took Gu blood elixir, but the efficacy would not last long. They were thinking of trying their best to buy some time for Jian Wushuang and Miss Xiao. But not only had Jian Wushuang not made a move, he even started casually chatting with her. They were naturally furious about that, so mad that they felt like vomiting blood. However, right at that moment, Jian Wushuang slowly turned around and took a glance at those Mu clan experts. Blood Mountain Sword had already appeared in his hand with a flip of his wrist. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang moved. He moved in a flash like a phantom, almost like a wind blowing by, not leaving a trace in the void. Xiao Heng and his company were staring at Jian Wushuang and Miss Xiao, thus naturally saw that. That speed. Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples were all stunned. Too fast, that speed was way too fast. It was unimaginable. Was a speed like that initiated by Jian Wushuang, whom they scorned? How was that possible? Before they could react, ripples formed in the void with a deep ringing sound. Coming directly after that was the shadow of a sword. It seemed regular and calm, almost strengthless. However, it was that sword shadow which attracted everyone in the battlefield as soon as it appeared, including the white-haired old man and Miss Xiao. Everybody stared straight at the sword shadow. It was too beautiful. So beautiful it was intoxicating. Whoosh! The sword shadow slashed across the void, only gradually dissolving after a while. When it landed on the ground, a figure appeared with it. That figure was Jian Wushuang. It's him. That kid. What's he doing? The sword shadow just now was his doing? Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples were quite dumbfounded, unable to snap out of it. The faces of Mu clan's experts were showing amazement too. That one move from Jian Wushuang was truly beautiful and magnificent. It was hard to imagine someone in the chaotic realm performed such a move. However, what was the use if the swordplay was merely visually beautiful? Just as everyone was wondering, chop, 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 chop. A total of 6 heads flew. Their owners were none other than the 6 divine demon experts of Mu clan. Although their heads flew off, their eyes were still puzzled by the sight they witnessed. While their consciousness was fading, up to the moment they died, they still could not figure out how it all happened. At the same time, the frozen headless torsos directly fell downwards. The surroundings became silent at that moment. Both parties which were fighting just moments ago collectively stopped battling, and multiple pairs of stunned eyes looked over at Jian Wushuang. This? Xiao Heng's lips trembled when he spoke. The other 4 core disciples were also dumbfounded. Just one strike. It was just one perfectly gorgeous and magnificent strike. They thought it was only visually stunning, but the result was the fall of 6 divine demons from Mu clan. How is this possible? A scream finally exploded. Not only the experts of Mu clan but Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples were also completely blown away. Jian Wushuang was only a middle-stage chaotic realm and outer disciple of Narcissus Island. Just because of his special relationship with Elder Wujian was just slightly special that none in Xiao Heng's group thought much about him. In the current mission, Jian Wushuang had expressed his slightly different views and opinions, but nobody ever paid any attention to what he said. They made decisions on their own without running them by Jian Wushuang because, in their minds, he was a good-for-nothing. However, Jian Wushuang then made his move. With just one strike of his sword, he slaughtered 6 third-class divine demons. What level of ability was that? Not bad. Miss Xiao, who was standing in the middle of the battlefield, while being protected by Xiao Heng and his men in a circle, had her eyes shining in amazement. After killing 6 third-class divine demons with Cutting Snow's first form, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up as his figure moved, showing his insights toward space-time law. 2 space-time shadows appeared in the void, made a weird jump, and Jian Wushuang was already next to the second-class divine demon of Mu clan. This speed. No! The second-class divine demon of Mu clan was startled but immediately adjusted himself. Second-class divine demon isn't as easy to kill as first-class. Jian Wushuang smiled in his mind. However, the stellar strength that had already merged into his entire body rose in a split second. 7 stars secret skills scroll 1. Activate. Ring. Blood Mountain sword stabbed forward. It was a straightforward strike, but carrying tremendous samsara strength. This form was called Samsara Empty Strike. The sword shadow was blurry and stabbed directly at the second-class divine demon right in front of him. The second-class divine demon, who held a large hammer, immediately counterattacked with a backhand. Seeing the hammer almost hitting the sword shadow, the second-class divine demon's expression suddenly froze. How is that possible? I clearly blocked him. With a face full of puzzlement, his eyes grew dimmer. A second-class divine demon was killed with 1 strike as well. Continue. Jian Wushuang smiled plainly and continued attacking the Mu clan experts around him. His frightening sword skills and speed were in full bloom. No! Watch out! Watch his sword! The Mu clan experts all looked fearful, even for second-class divine demons. Jian Wushuang's sword skills were too terrifying. The white-haired old man who was standing nearby could no longer stay still. Stop, kid! He roared as his energy expanded and white hair was blown mid-air. The white-haired old man was also a second-class divine demon, but the energy projected from his body was more powerful than the rest. He was probably at the peak of second-class divine demon, only a short step away from first-class divine demon. Under the explosion of his energy, he dashed at Jian Wushuang like a giant prehistoric creature. This guy's pretty strong. Jian Wushuang took 1 glance at the white-haired old man. A surging divine power started to concentrate behind his body in the next moment. In the blink of an eye, a 300-meter divine god's shadow formed out of thin air. The first of 7-star Black Sect's 5 secret skills, Divine God of Punishment, had been displayed. The 7-star secret skill Divine God of Punishment had been fully activated and Jian Wushuang attacked using his maximum strength. Die, kid! Like an infuriated lion, the white-haired old man looked absolutely ferocious with his pair of fiery red fighting gloves appearing as if his hands were burning. I'm afraid you would be the one to die. Jian Wushuang sneered and with a few dashes, suddenly appeared in front of the old man. They immediately made their moves at the same time. Jian Wushuang was holding the Blood Mountain sword engulfed in formless sword intent while using the Shen Luo sword principle. The white-haired old man was extremely vicious with his pair of huge fists smashing down. Bam! 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 Continuous collision sounds bursting out with divine power sweeping outwards with every hit. Both of them had used their maximum strength. In the blink of an eye, they had already clashed head-to-head more than 10 times. Finally, there was a snapping noise. Unable to withstand the impacts, the white-haired old man's fiery red fighting gloves exploded after clashing with Blood Mountain's sword over and over again. What? The old man was stunned. However, Jian Wushuang did not give him any room to breathe. A blurry sword shadow swept outwards, forming ripples within the void wherever it passed by. The whole environment froze. The white-haired old man seemed lost, while the blurry sword shadow had already sliced through his throat. A large head flew off. First-class divine demon strength? The white-haired old man still could not believe it before he died. It was true that a few months before, when he was in Anzhou Commandery, Jian Wushuang was still merely at the early-stage chaotic realm. However, when he gave his all, his battle strength had already reached the level of second-class divine demon and even the top among its kind. At that time, he confronted Xianxia and Chen Yuan, 2 powerful second-class divine demon, and came to a tie. He even had a slight advantage. Now that a few months had passed, he had been promoted from early stage to middle stage chaotic realm. His law insights and understanding of the sword had also improved a bit. His battle strength was much stronger than before. He truly possessed the battle strength of a first-class divine demon. Hence, he was able to slaughter those third-class divine demons and killed a second-class divine demon with 1 strike using his own sword form. Even when fighting the white-haired old man, as soon as they fought head-to-head, Jian Wushuang could still cut him down with his sword form. When the old man died, the rest of the Mu clan experts were shaken to the core. Run! Let's get out of here! Even Elder Mu Qiu was so easily killed by him, and looks like none of us are capable of confronting him. Let's run! The experts from Mu clan started to disperse in a frenzy. However, although they wanted to escape, Jian Wushuang did not let them. All of these people should just die. Jian Wushuang's intention to kill was surging. He had not much enmity towards Mu clan, hence from a personal standpoint, there was no need to kill all the Mu clan experts. However, the situation did not allow him to have mercy because Miss Xiao wanted these Mu clan men to die. Swoop! Jian Wushuang's insight on spacetime law had completely exploded. Spacetime shadows kept flashing in the void as his speed had gone up to an extreme as well. Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples from Narcissus Island were at a loss standing there. They could see Jian Wushuang's figure in the void flashing, shifting, and appearing non-stop. Every time he appeared, he was at a different place followed by his sword striking down. Every strike guaranteed the death of a Mu clan expert. There were 2 second-class and 8 third-class divine demons from Mu clan left. However, they were no different from ants in Jian Wushuang's hands. After a stream of continuous flashes, within 2 breaths' time, Jian Wushuang finally stopped. At that moment, what Xiao Hong and the rest could see were corpses all over the ground with blood splattered everywhere. Mu clan's experts had all turned into lifeless bodies, laying on the ground, while Jian Wushuang was standing tall without a scratch. Dead! Mu clan's experts are all dead, Xiao Hong and the core disciples exclaimed before become completely speechless. Their eyes were locked on Jian Wushuang with an indescribable shock in it. It was like looking at Death himself, who slaughtered second-class and third-class divine demons like farm animals. They wondered if he was really the same person who came to carry out the mission with them. The one that they did not particularly care for and was merely an outer disciple on Narcissus Island, Jian Wushuang? Was he really only at Chaotic Realm? Jian Wushuang. Xiao Hong trembled. He wanted to say something but paused when the words were on the tip of his tongue. He simply did not know what he should be saying. However, Jian Wushuang did not pay attention to him either. After slaughtering the Mu clan experts, he shifted his figure and went back to Miss Xiao. Miss Xiao, I'm wondering if you're satisfied with the sight before you? Jian Wushuang smiles. Not too shabby. Miss Xiao nodded slightly while looking at Jian Wushuang strangely. I've cleaned up those people from Mu clan, but I can't do anything about the few left, said Jian Wushuang. I have cleaned up the people from Mu clan, but I can't do anything about the few left. Jian Wushuang clearly sounded a little helpless. As for Xiao Hong and the core disciples, they were simply lost. They had no idea what Jian Wushuang and Miss Xiao were talking about. Jian Wushuang asked Miss Xiao if she was satisfied. Why ask such a question? And what about the few left that Jian Wushuang mentioned? Who else was there at that moment other than them? Just as Xiao Hong and his group were puzzled, whoosh, 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 3 figures suddenly appeared next to them without any premonition. They were 2 men and a woman. The leader was a handsome young man with black hair. This is... Xiao Hong and his group looked over. Their faces changed as soon as they saw them. Although there were only 3 of them, the divine power they emitted was so strong and overpowering. Apparently, they were the 3 big first-class divine demons. The black-haired young man who was leading them stood there like a big mountain. His overpowering energy made Xiao Hong and the core disciples struggle to breathe. This is... Xiao Hong stared at the black-haired young man and a name came to mind. Bai Tao. This is Bai Tao of 9 Stars Palace. Even Xiao Heng's voice slightly trembled. Bai Tao of 9 Stars Palace? The 4 core disciples paused for a second and then their faces changed. 12 minor kings. He is one of the 12 minor kings, Bai Tao. The Wuxia wilderness was not quite comparable to the ancient god domain, but there were quite a number of prodigies. The widely renowned top prodigies in Wuxia wilderness were none other than the 12 minor kings. The 12 minor kings were all incredibly talented. Some were from powerful sects, some from certain clans, and there were 2 lone wolves. Bai Tao was one of them. Although he was in the lower ranks of the 12, merely placed 11th, he was still an extraordinary prodigy. Xiao Hong knew that he was quite talented himself, but if he were to be compared to Bai Tai, he was nothing. What's happening? Why is Bai Tao of the 12 minor kings showing up here? And it seems like Jian Wushuang had already known of their presence before this. Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples were filled with questions. Following the appearance of the 3 first-class divine demons, the atmosphere had changed into a delicate one. The black-haired young man, Bai Tao, had a pair of dark eyes like black diamonds and was full of energy. At that moment, he was staring straight at Jian Wushuang. A mere middle-stage chaotic realm could match his battle strength with first-class divine demon? In addition, his senses were so sharp that though we hid extremely well, he could still detect us. The 3 of them had noticed Miss Xiao long ago. Since Xiao Hong and his company brought Miss Xiao out of Qingxiao City, they were just following them from behind and never showed themselves. What just happened there was clearly witnessed by them. They definitely saw Jian Wushuang defeating the Mu clan experts like tearing down rotten trees with his middle-stage chaotic realm abilities. The abilities that Jian Wushuang had shown which does not correspond with the realm he was in, even surprised prodigies such as Bai Tao. When Bai Tao himself was in the middle-stage chaotic realm, the most he could do was to defeat a peak-stage chaotic realm. However, Jian Wushuang was apparently way stronger than him. What kind of monster is this? Why haven't I heard of him? Bai Tao mumbled to himself. Seeing the 3's appearance, Jian Wushuang gave a mild smile and stepped to the side. He was only helping Miss Xiao clean up the Mu clan experts. As for Bai Tao and his companions, he had no obligations to deal with them. Miss Xiao, it's up to you now. Jian Wushuang intriguingly looked at Miss Xiao. Miss Xiao came off as incredibly dangerous and enigmatic to him. Now that the 3 big first-class divine demons were there, he could take this opportunity to see what her real capabilities were. Miss Xiao took a glance at Jian Wushuang without saying a word, then leisurely gazed over at Bai Tao and his companions. Sir, may I ask, what is the reason for you to be here? Miss Xiao maintained a very attractive look. Her every move was unforgettable. Xiao Hong and his companions fluttered inside. Their eyes still betrayed their craze. You lowly maid, don't use your tricks on me. I'm only here today to ask you a question. Bai Tao started at Miss Xiao as her seductive qualities had no effect on him. Miss Xiao maintained her expression, but there was a trace of frostiness deep in her eyes. I wonder what would the question be, sir? Half a year ago, there were a few 9 Stars Palace disciples who came to Luogu territory for some adventures and came to Qingxiao City. However, not long after their arrival in Qingxiao City, all 6 of them, including junior brother Luozhen, disappeared without a trace. Do you know anything about this? Asked Bai Tao coldly. Hearing the story, Xiao Hong and the core disciples felt slightly surprised. Luozhen, it was not an unfamiliar name to them. Although he was not one of the 12 minor kings and his reputation was not as prestigious as Bai Tao, Luozhen was absolutely one of the most outstanding disciples from 9 Stars Palace. Furthermore, just like Bai Tao, Luozhen was also the palace master's personal disciple. How did a prodigal disciple like that disappear in Qingxiao City? Seeing that Miss Xiao did not react to the question, Bai Tao continued to speak. After realizing that junior brother Luozhen and his group disappeared, we did everything we could to investigate this matter. After investigating half a year, we finally found out that the 100 Flowers Tower was the last place they visited and the last person they met was you. Would you deny that the disappearance of junior brother Luozhen and his group had nothing to do with you? Bai Tao and the 2 first-class divine demons next to him stared straight at Miss Xiao. The fact that they dared to confront her personally meant that what they said had fairly solid grounds. Even though they could not prove that Luozhen and the rest died in Miss Xiao's hands, they could at least be certain that their disappearance was deeply related to Miss Xiao. Miss Xiao laughed hearing Bai Tao's words. Looks like the 9 Stars sect has pretty good intelligence sources, huh? You could actually trace this far. So it is you. Bai Tao's expression turned grim, and his massive god power began its oppression against Miss Xiao. The god power of a first-class divine demon could even make third-class and second-class divine demons shudder. However, Miss Xiao did not budge at all. "You lowly maid, where are junior brother Luozhen and his group right now?" growled Bai Tao. "Oh, them? Let me think." Miss Xiao pretended to think deeply and after a long while and acted as if she just recalled. "Oh, I remember. They are all dead. All dead." Bai Tao and his companions' hearts skipped a beat. Even though they had guessed as much, they still felt incredibly hard to accept when it was a confirmed fact. They did not feel too strongly about the other disciples in the group, but the crucial one was Luozhen. He was the most outstanding disciple from 9 Stars Palace aside from Bai Tao. He was also 9 Stars Palace Master's personal disciple, guaranteed to become a peak stage divine demon in the future and even had a high possibility to surpass divine demon realm into a higher level. The premature death of such a genius was truly a great loss to 9 Stars Palace. "You lowly maid, be honest with me. How did junior brother Luozhen and the rest die? Who killed them?" Bai Tao stared at Miss Xiao. No, I think you've misunderstood. They weren't killed. They committed suicide." Miss Xiao shook her head relentlessly. "Suicide?" Bai Tao pondered for a second and immediately became extremely angry. "You lowly maid, are you tricking me? Suicide? Why would a respectable first-class divine demon commit suicide? What a joke. I surely wasn't tricking you. It's the truth. You may not believe me now, but very soon you will." Miss Xiao smiled devilishly. As she was smiling, her eyes started glowing with a faint red light. It was so faint that if one did not look closely, it would not be seen. However, the red light had special magic power. Almost in an instant, Bai Tao, who was standing right in front of Miss Xiao and both first-class divine demons behind him changed their expressions. Bai Tao was slightly better than the other two, whose eyes became hollow and idle. "I've already said that people do kill themselves. Even first-class divine demons are like that. Don't you agree?" said Miss Xiao nonchalantly, but her tone was extremely cold. "Yes." The ones who answered were the 2 first-class divine demons behind Bai Tao. Their expressions became completely dull as Xiao Hong and everyone else watched in disbelief. They each took out a dagger before stabbing their hearts without hesitation. The dagger's power also broke all their internal organs into pieces while penetrating their hearts. However, these 2 first-class divine demons did not make a sound. They remained expressionless as they slowly pulled the daggers out from their hearts and collapsed together onto the ground. Xiao Hong and the rest of them shuddering. In the blink of an eye, the 2 first-class divine demons who were still ready to seek revenge from Miss Xiao a moment ago had turned into 2 corpses. Most importantly, what killed them was not anyone else but themselves. They took out the daggers and stabbed themselves in the heart. They really committed suicide. That. Even Bai Tao was dumbfounded. Even though he was the most outstanding genius from 9 Stars Palace, as one of the 12 minor kings and a true cream of the crop, he had not seen such a sight. That was a horrible sight. "You demon, what have you done?" Bai Tao sounded hysterical. He wanted to cut down Miss Xiao who was right in front of him, but realized to his horror that he could even move a step. He was overtaken by a mysterious power under her stare. That power rose directly from his own heart, gradually took over his mind, consciousness, and everything. Fortunately, he was quite strong and mentally grounded. Therefore, he could somewhat pull himself together, but only after putting in a forceful effort. Miss Xiao smiled mildly. "What have I done? I've already said your junior brother Luozhen committed suicide. Since you didn't believe me, I had to prove it to you. But don't you worry, you will also kill yourself just like they did." "What?" Bai Tao was stunned. Right then he saw a shade of red. The shade of red was projected from Miss Xiao's eyes. The very faint red light from before became extremely bright at this moment. Against the red light, Miss Xiao began to look bewitching. The powers that were eating up Bai Tao in his own body suddenly surged more than 10 folds. It only took a blink of an eye by force to break down his mind's defensive line. Standing on the ground, Bai Tao's eyes started becoming hollow as well and his expression became dull. A brief moment later, he flipped his wrist and took out his dagger just like the other 2 first-class divine demons before stabbing his own heart. Without hesitation or mercy. In just a short instance, Bai Tao, One of Wuxia Wilderness's 12 minor kings had followed his companion's footsteps of finishing himself by committing suicide. The empty field surrounded by the woods was completely silent. Dead silent. Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples from Narcissus Island were completely dumbfounded. They were scared to that point that even their bodies were frenziedly shaking. The 3 big first-class divine demons, including Bai Tao, one of the 12 minor kings, died before them in the most senseless way. From the beginning to the end, Miss Xiao did not raise a finger. A glance from her was all it took. She killed 3 first-class divine demons just like that. What method was that? Xiao Hong could not help but take another glance at Miss Xiao. The passion and craze in his eyes had completely vanished and been replaced with tremendous fear. He could not think otherwise towards Miss Xiao anymore. Now that he finally understood that this woman was not what he thought she was at all. She was not a seductive beauty, but a terrifying femme fatale. Next, he thought of what Jian Wushuang told them. That woman was not so simple. They finally understood why Jian Wushuang would say that. How simple could a person be, when she could easily make the 3 big first-class divine demons commit suicide with just her glance? Why would she require a few mere third-class divine demons to rescue her? Not only Xiao Hong and the core disciples, but even Jian Wushuang was also secretly stunned by the method Miss Xiao utilized to kill off Bai Tao and his companions. Was that soul manipulation? No, if it's really soul manipulation, Bai Tao and his companions' expressions wouldn't look like that and Xiao wouldn't have to kill them. From appearances, it seemed like some sort of bewitchment. That's right, it was bewitchment. Jian Wushuang raised his head and took a glance at Miss Xiao with fear in his eyes. Right at that moment, Miss Xiao glanced over at him as well. The red light in her eyes was still there. No! Jian Wushuang looked terrified. Almost at the same moment when Miss Xiao looked at him, a mysterious power started to rise from his body. The source of the power was the inner demons. It wanted to eat up his mind and his everything. The crucial aspect was that while it was eating him up, Jian Wushuang felt an incomparable satisfaction and comfort. It was such an amazing feeling that he could not help but let himself sink in. Jian Wushuang finally understood how the 3 first-class divine demons could not even fight it off. Not only first-class divine demons, even peak-stage divine demons or those above divine demon realm could easily be conquered by that mysterious power from the inner demons should they so much as slightly lose their concentration. Only a grounded mind could withstand an attack method such as that. Humph! Jian Wushuang let out a cold harumph while still standing at the same place with frosty eyes. The rising power of the inner demons was completely suppressed by him. Your bewitching tactic, which comes from inner demons, is truly impressive. Regretfully, it doesn't work on me, said Jian Wushuang with a deep tone. He had lived for 100,000 years in his past life, which he had been through so many trials and tribulations, especially the 3 inverse cultivation tests. They were all tremendous tests for his mind and will. After going through that many challenges, his mind had become as indestructible as iron cubes. The bewitchment method that Miss Xiao used was truly powerful, but it would be a joke if she wanted to control him with it. Haha, you're truly something, huh? Miss Xiao smiled plainly, gradually dimming the red light in her eyes. She then looked towards Jian Wushuang again and said, compared to that rubbish before, you're truly not just at level higher. However, if I really want to kill you, I have many ways to do it. As soon as she was done speaking, a dark shadow flashed by and a phantom-like figure appeared next to Miss Xiao. That phantom figure was a young woman in black. Jian Wushuang, Xiao Hong, and the rest immediately recognized her. She was little Li, the maid who was serving Miss Xiao in 100 Flowers Tower. The impression that she gave off before was also one of gentle and weak. However, little Li's face was now as frosty as ice. What was especially surprising was the aura of divine power she was projecting. That divine power aura was even stronger than the late Bai Tao's and not by just one level. Peak stage divine demon. She is a peak stage divine demon? Xiao Hong and the core disciples were startled. Peak stage divine demon was above first-class divine demon. That stage could only be achieved by governors of the old cities in Luogu territory. Even for top-tier sects like Narcissus Island, There were only a few peak-stage divine demons which could be counted with 10 fingers. But a maid next to Miss Xiao was actually a peak-stage divine demon. Peak-stage divine demon, huh? Your aura-concealing technique is quite impressive that you even fooled me. Jian Wushuang murmured to himself. Miss, would you like me to kill them? As soon as little Li appeared, she inquired. Peak-stage divine demon. If an expert like that made a move, even Jian Wushuang, who used vicious methods to kill off every man from Mu clan a moment ago, would not have much chance to fight back. Furthermore, there was an even more terrifying person, Miss Xiao. Hearing little Li's inquiry, Miss Xiao raised her eyebrows and looked at Jian Wushuang with a half-smile. Your name is Jian Wushuang, correct? Now that little Li has asked, tell me, should I kill all of you off right here? Jian Wushuang was still incredibly calm. Miss Xiao, I've said just now, Narcissus Island has no relationship with the Mu clan. They were even using us. Moreover, I've killed off all the men from Mu clan. Shouldn't you be satisfied by now? Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples finally understood why Jian Wushuang annihilated all the Mu clan experts. It turned out that he already knew their lives were all within Miss Xiao's palm. He did it just to make her happy, hoping that she would let them live. Furthermore, Jian Wushuang had told Miss Xiao since the beginning and asked her to show mercy. Jian Wushuang had always been with us and interacted with Miss Xiao. We had not realized anything fishy, but he realized so many things. What kind of a monster is he? Xiao Hong exclaimed in his mind. However, it was not the time to think about those things. He only hoped that Miss Xiao could show them some mercy. Your performance was truly quite impressive. If those 3 from 9 Stars Palace didn't show up, I could have let you live based on your merit of killing all the Mu clan's men. However, now that all of you have witnessed me killing the 9 Stars Palace people, which includes their most outstanding prodigy Bai Tao, who was one of the 12 minor kings, if words went to the 9 Stars Palace, it could bring me quite a bit of trouble. Therefore, the best way is to kill all those who know about this. That way, word wouldn't get out. Don't you agree? Miss Xiao playfully looked at Jian Wushuang. Certainly, I would have done that if it was me, said Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Xiao Hong and the rest started to panic when they heard him saying that. Isn't it? Since even you think so, tell me, is there an excuse for me not to kill you all? Said Miss Xiao playfully. Of course there are plenty of excuses. For example, if you've killed us, not only you aren't able to hide the murder of Bai Tao, Luozhen, and their lot, you will also deeply offend Narcissus Island. Jian Wushuang smiled. Oh! Miss Zhao's expression changed and immediately laughed. You are joking, aren't you? This part of space-time has already been completely sealed. Who would know if I killed you? I regret to say, Miss Xiao, you probably didn't notice that the surrounding space-time seal had gone through some changes, or should I say, there are some flaws? Jian Wushuang gave a big smile. What? Miss Xiao startled. Little Li, who stood next to her, immediately reached out her senses to feel the space-time around them. It was true that the time-space seal set up by the Mu clan experts had already shown some flaws. It was you. Miss Xiao glanced at Jian Wushuang. Haha, it's a space-time seal which involves space-time force. It just so happens that I'm one who studies space-time law and has learned a few tricks. When I was killing the Mu clan experts, I had already started working on unsealing it, to leave a backdoor for myself, of course. Jian Wushuang smiled. You actually had additional energy to shake up the space-time seal around you while slaughtering the Mu clan people? Miss Xiao was feeling surprised. Xiao Hong and his companions stared at Jian Wushuang as if he was some sort of monster. They could not imagine that he could have already predicted what would happen since the very beginning, and because of that, he had prepared an escape plan for himself. Moreover, the escape plan was laid out simultaneously when he was busy slaughtering the Mu clan experts. A method such as that was truly shocking. Miss Xiao, there are already gaps in the space-time seal around us, and I'm in control of them. As long as I wish to, every single thing that happened here will be reported to Elder Wujin of Narcissus Island. At that point in time, you would not only deeply offend 9 Stars Palace, you would also profoundly offend Narcissus Island. Of course, if you have the skills to kill me before I could even transmit the message, then by all means please make your move. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but just by using your bewitchment technique and your peak stage divine demon maid, even with enough time it would still be hard for you to kill me right here, let alone stopping me from transmitting the message. Jian Wushuang, while wearing a confident smile on his face. When it came to battle strength, he was comparable to first-class divine demon but still a far cry from Little Li's peak stage divine demon. However, it was not easy for a peak stage divine demon to kill him either. The crucial point was that he was a perfect chaotic creature, not to mention that he had fairly deep insights on spacetime law that would allow him to escape based on his own speed. The second perfect chaotic creature born in the world would not be someone who could get killed so easily. Miss Zhao's eyes calmly looked at Jian Wushuang. Little Li on the side had her eyebrows locked tightly. They both could feel Jian Wushuang's absolute confidence and had to admit that they probably would not be able to kill him within a short time, even if they attacked him together. Jian Wushuang, you're brilliant, but you truly look down on me. Narcissus Island? 9 Stars Palace? What are they? You really think that I would worry about them? Miss Zhao burst out laughing. You wouldn't, but you don't like trouble, especially now. If my guess is right, you deliberately exposed your whereabouts to Mu Clan with full preparation beforehand, and you're probably going to attack them in the near future. At this juncture, you want to avoid provoking large sects like Narcissus Island and 9 Stars Palace, said Jian Wushuang with a smile. Miss Zhao squinted immediately. She did prepare to make a move on Mu Clan, and she did deliberately expose her whereabouts to the Mu Clan. However, how did Jian Wushuang predict all of that? Interesting. It's getting more and more interesting. Miss Zhao's tone had a shade of playfulness while she was speaking, and the red light in her eyes started to reappear. She was looking towards Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples this time. Xiao Hong and the core disciples could not react at all before their eyes started turning into a daze before immediately collapsing to the ground. Jian Wushuang took a short glance behind at 5 of them and knew that Miss Zhao did not kill them but merely made them faint. With the 5 of them blacked out, the only ones still standing were Jian Wushuang, Miss Zhao, and the chambermaid, Little Li. Miss Zhao smiled. Jian Wushuang, you do have superior eyes and could see behind everything, but I could also see quite many of your matters. When you were cutting down the Mu Clan's men a while ago, you had utilized 2 secret skills. The first secret skill was using a mysterious power that had already merged with your divine power, blood, and essence. This kind of power is really potent as it's able to push your realm level from the middle stage chaotic realm all the way up to the peak of it and even extremely close to peak stage divine realm, directly promoting you by half a realm. Secret skills that could directly level up your realm while not presenting any side effects are rare, even in the ancient god domain. If I'm not mistaken, what you used was the 7 Stars secret skill of 7 Stars Black Sect. Jian Wushuang was shocked but did not show it on his face. As for the second secret skill, which formed a 300 feet hologram behind you and pushed your battle strength even higher, I know it as well. It's Divine God of Punishment from the 7 Stars Black Sect. Rumor has it that 7 Stars Black Sect possesses 5 of the strongest secret skills. 7 Stars secret skills and the Divine God of Punishment were among them. The 7 Stars Black Sect regards secret skills like this as something extremely precious to them. They almost never pass it to outsiders. If an outsider had unusually good luck and was able to use one of the secret skills, he would be considered very impressive. However, to possess 2 of the secret skills from 7 Stars Black Sect, it's absolutely impossible. However, to be at middle stage chaotic realm and possessing 2 secret skills from 7 Stars Black Sect. Haha, your relationship with the now perished 7 Stars Black Sect must be quite unusual. Miss Zhao stared at Jian Wushuang with a half-smile. Jian Wushuang raised his head and looked at her deeply, but smiled right away. Miss Zhao also has very good eyes. The process of destroying the Mu Clan experts was very short, and I only used the secret skills for an even shorter time, yet you could still recognize them. However, just because you were able to identify these 2 secret skills, you have also exposed yourself at the same time. Neither 7 Stars secret skills nor Divine God of Punishment was the most important secret skills in the 7 Stars Black Sect. It's not easy for someone to recognize these skills. It wasn't even easy for someone who had fought against these 2 skills to identify them through my battle just now. The only people who've gotten extremely familiar with them through deep studies, been in contact with them physically, and practiced them could recognize the two secret skills at first sight. Miss Xiao, you're the second Miss of Mu Clan and was born in Wuxia Wilderness. Up until now, you probably had less than 20 years of practice, so how could you've known about 7 Stars Black Sect? How could you be familiar with these two secret skills? I'm afraid there is only one explanation to this, Miss Xiao. You arrived at Wuxia Wilderness only after going through samsara. Am I right? Jian Wushuang stared dead at Miss Xiao. Miss Xiao also looked at Jian Wushuang at the same time. There was an absolute coldness in her eyes. Within the coldness, there was a bit of fear hidden. Yes, it was fear. Miss Xiao did not care much about Jian Wushuang in the beginning, but she really felt a little fear at that moment. However, the fact is that Jian Wushuang had an even bigger fear towards her. Both of them had extremely powerful minds and vision. Miss Xiao identified the two secret skills that Jian Wushuang practiced and his unusual relationship with 7 Stars Black Sect simply by observing his short battle. While, precisely because of that, Jian Wushuang could identify Miss Xiao as someone like himself who have been through the Reincarnation passage and ended up in Wuxia Wilderness using samsara. Samsara. Jian Wushuang sighed secretly in his mind. Samsara was an incredible method. Even within ancient god domain, there were only a mere few who could send a person into the Reincarnation passage and rebirth with spiritual energy. That was the reason why there was hardly anybody who was reincarnated in the ancient god domain. However, there were 2 such people within the tiny Wuxia territory at the same time. One was Jian Wushuang himself, the other was Miss Xiao who stood before him. The difference was that Jian Wushuang came from the eternal chaotic world, a completely sealed-off world. However, Miss Xiao, someone who could achieve samsara, must be one with an incredible origin. Miss Xiao understands the secret skills of 7 Stars Black Sect so well, plus your method of bewitchment is so unique and outstanding. You must have been a major figure in the ancient god domain, but you were forced to enter samsara because of some special circumstances. In situations such as this, if I were to expose your history, it would most probably put you at a great disadvantage. Yes. Jian Wushuang smiled. He knew that any reincarnated person always had a specific reason to enter the reincarnation passage. Furthermore, the reasons must be compelling enough for her to choose to be reborn into the next life. Hence, before she could completely restore her strength, Miss Xiao certainly would not want to expose her true identity. Are you threatening me, Jian Wushuang? Miss Xiao took a cold glance at Jian Wushuang. Humph, I do have some major origin, but your origin is probably even bigger than mine. The 7 Stars Black Sect had already perished completely. This is common knowledge. However, there is now a person who possesses 2 secret skills from the sect and had a deep relationship with it. I'm sure a lot of people from the ancient god domain would be very interested in you, correct? I'm afraid the 3 divine realms, 4 god tribes, and 8 heavenly sects would find you. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Indeed. Hence, we both have things to worry about, or should I say, we've both got the goods on each other. Why do we have to try to destroy each other? It wouldn't do either of us any good. Why don't we each take a step back and keep the secret for each other? What do you think? Sure. Miss Xiao did not hesitate and nodded right away. She had a demonic mind and could tell what Jian Wushuang said was true. Both of them had huge origins and possessed massive secrets. Most importantly, they had no enmity toward each other to begin with. All the same, Miss Xiao had no enmity towards 7 Stars Black Sect. On the contrary, they had some friendship. Since that was the case, why would they need to fight each other to death? I can let you live today. When we walk away, we each have to keep the other's secrets and never to tell anyone. Otherwise, we'll fight each other to death, said Miss Xiao frostily. Jian Wushuang nodded and smiled. Of course. Oh yes. How about my senior brothers here? Miss Xiao took a quick look at Xiao Hong and his group who had fainted earlier. You're saying those 5? They're fools and didn't get to know much. However, they also saw me killing Bai Tao and his companions. If I leave them here, it wouldn't be good for me. Miss Xiao, these 5 people came here with me on a mission. If they're all dead and I return as the sole survivor, it would be hard for me to explain when I get back to Narcissus Island. Therefore, I would like to ask for Miss Zhao's mercy again. After this, I'll warn them not to speak a word about what happened today with anyone, said Jian Wushuang. In fact, he did not care if Xiao Hong and the rest were dead or alive. The important crux was, if they really died, he would not know how to explain when he got back to Narcissus Island. Who would believe that 5 core disciples died in the process of carrying out a mission, while a mere outer disciple survived and returned unscathed? Can you guarantee that they won't speak about it? Asked Miss Xiao. Well, Jian Wushuang smiled wryly. He really could not guarantee. After all, it was up to Xiao Hong and the rest of the group if they wanted to talk about it. Furthermore, he did not know them well enough. More so, he could forget about ordering them to do anything. Forget it, even if the word got out, it would just be 9 Stars Palace that I have to face. A bit of extra trouble, but nothing too serious. Seeing that you're doing me a favor, I'll let them live, but you have to agree on one condition, said Miss Xiao. What is it? Asked Jian Wushuang. It's simple, you owe me a favor. Although I have no use for it right now, it's a guarantee that I'll need it in the future. When that opportunity comes and I need your help, you cannot decline, said Miss Xiao. Jian Wushuang shook his head hearing that. Miss Xiao, you've probably overestimated the value of these 5 senior brothers of mine. I'm not friends with them. I truly don't care whether they live or die. I just don't want to put myself in a difficult position when I go back. If you want to exchange a favor from me with their lives, it isn't enough. After all, returning a favor could cost much. Though, I do have a suggestion that might interest you. And what is it? Miss Xiao looked over. We can forge an alliance now. If you run into any troubles in the future, I will do everything I can to help. But, if I need your help one day, you'll have to help me with all your ability as well, said Jian Wushuang solemnly. He knew that Miss Xiao probably had no hatred against the 7 Stars Black Sect, but might even have a rather close friendship. In addition, it was worthwhile forging an alliance with someone who had such a huge background. After all, his own identity was too sensitive and he had too many enemies. 3 divine realms, 4 god tribes, and 8 heavenly sects were something that he had to face eventually. At that moment, he certainly needed some powerful friends. This Miss Xiao was definitely a rather good choice for a friend. Alliance, huh? Miss Xiao pondered for a moment and slowly nodded her head. Sure. I will forge an alliance with you. Haha. Then, I wish us a happy alliance. Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. Don't get so happy too soon. I know quite a bit about 7 Stars Black Sect, and I know what you have to face from here on. I wouldn't be able to do much myself when the time comes. Miss Xiao froze his enthusiasm right then. Oh, I know. But it's always better than me facing them alone. Besides, this is just the beginning. From now on, I will find ways to make stronger and reliable friends. Jian Wushuang smiled. This is my message token. We can communicate through this token. Miss Xiao passed a token to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang accepted it. Jian Wushuang, I will leave Wuxia Wilderness rather soon, you better catch up. Your current ability is still a far cry from being my ally. Little Li, let's go. After she spoke, Miss Xiao turned around and left with Little Li. Jian Wushuang stood there watching Miss Xiao and Little Li leave while wearing a wry smile. He could see that his new ally had a sense of dislike towards him. Surely it was because of his abilities. Abilities? Looks like I need to restore my peak condition as soon as I can and improve my abilities. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be qualified to become her ally. Jian Wushuang sighed but very soon calmed himself down. On the other hand, Miss Xiao and Little Li were on their way back to 100 Flowers Tower. Along the way, Miss, do we really want to forge an alliance with that Jian Wushuang character? Asked a puzzled Little Li. Miss Xiao took a glance at Little Li. Or else, because of his relationship with 7 Stars Black Sect, I can't possibly kill him. Other than that, his mind was really sharp, being able to see so many things within such a short time. His ability was still a little weak, but one has to know that everybody starts from being weak before reaching the peak. Even the high and mighty master of divine realms is also the same. You have also witnessed his gift. Being a middle-stage chaotic realm, he could cut down second-class divine demons. Although assisted by 2 secret skills of 7 Stars Black Sect, The mere fact that he could achieve that proves he is unusual. He may not be of any use to us currently, but who knows if we might really be able to use him. Little Li said, "Understood. After we get back, I'll send someone to watch him closely." Miss Xiao waved her hand. No need. No need to pay attention to him, just let him be. Our target right now is Mu Clan. The clan has been around for so long. It's time for them to disappear. In the empty field half a day later, Xiao Hong and the 4 core disciples who fainted gradually regained their consciousness. What happened? What happened to me? They were all puzzled. Looking around them, the corpses were all cleaned up and Jian Wushuang was just casually sitting on the side. As for Miss Xiao and her maid, they were long gone. "Senior brothers, you're awake?" Jian Wushuang looked over. "Junior brother Jian Wushuang, what actually happened?" Xiao Heng's attitude towards Jian Wushuang had changed completely. Before that, neither he nor the 4 core disciples treated Jian Wushuang seriously and never addressed him as junior brother Jian Wushuang. They had always directly called his name. However, when they faced him, they felt a sense of respect. Respect. Although they had fainted, they could still clearly remember everything that happened previously. They were completely floored by both Jian Wushuang's abilities and mind. In their eyes, Jian Wushuang should be categorized as a monster. However, they did not understand why was a monster only an outer disciple of Narcissus Island. Nothing. There were just some things that she didn't want you to know. "So Miss Xiao temporarily made you lose consciousness," said Jian Wushuang. Xiao Heng finally understood. "Is that so? Where is Miss Xiao then?" "Gone back to 100 Flowers Tower." "Why, do you actually still want to bring her back to Narcissus Island? Or, would you rather make her stay beside you and possess her completely?" Jian Wushuang ridiculed. Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples shuddered when they heard what he said. Possessing Miss Xiao? If it was earlier on, they truly had that thought, but now, the idea had vanished into thin air. They also lost a little bit of craze towards Miss Xiao. In replacement was fear. An incredible fear. Miss Xiao was absolutely the scariest woman they had ever met. They would even call her an absolute demon. Without raising a finger, she manipulated Bai Tao's group and made them kill themselves. What kind of method was that? They shivered just at the thought of that. "Senior brothers, even though Miss Xiao has left and did not kill you, but there are some things that I have to clarify with you." Jian Wushuang's tone suddenly became solemn. "First, you must forget everything you saw today, including the Mu clan experts and Bai Tao's group. You must forget all of it. I did not kill the Mu clan experts, and you've never even seen Bai Tao's group, understand?" Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples' hearts skipped. Even though they were not very smart, they were definitely not stupid. They all understood what Jian Wushuang meant. "Don't worry, junior brother. The 5 of us will not say a word about what happened here today," said Xiao Heng. "That would be best, otherwise nobody can save you. Even Narcissus Island wouldn't be able to," said Jian Wushuang. Xiao Heng and the rest were shocked, but when they thought of Miss Xiao's method of killing, they understood what he meant. "Secondly, we have failed our mission. When we return to Narcissus Island, let's tell the Divine Mystery Pavilion of our opinion on the mission is too dangerous and couldn't find an opportunity to take action, so we gave up." Divine Mystery Pavilion probably wouldn't ask further. "Even if they would ask, you can find some excuses and deceive them," said Jian Wushuang. "MMHM." Xiao Heng and the 4 core disciples all nodded. The Divine Mystery Pavilion on Narcissus Island was only responsible for assigning missions. They would give rewards for accomplished missions. It was not a big issue either if the mission was not accomplished. The most serious scenario would be punishment and was of little consequences. Divine Mystery Pavilion would not usually ask about the mission's process. Jian Wushuang said, "Thirdly, Miss Xiao actually wanted to slaughter all 5 of you, but I did all I could, even sacrificing something to convince her to let you live. Due to that, I'm at a great loss, so the 5 of you will have to think of a way to repay me." "Naturally." Xiao Heng nodded without hesitation. "If it wasn't for you, junior brother Wushuang, the 5 of us would probably have died many times. Of course, we wouldn't let you go through a bigger loss," said one of the core disciples. Jian Wushuang laughed inside. He did not quite fancy the 5 of them. Of course, he would take some advantage out of them given the opportunity. Well, the actual price wasn't something big. Just some elixirs that helped raise divine power. The only thing is that it's quite a lot. Jian Wushuang began to tell his story. After a round of discussion, Xiaohang and the 4 core disciples finally decided to give Jian Wushuang 90% of the elixir that they had. While in the next 3 years, they would also give him all the resources that they could get as core disciples on Narcissus Island. This was as good as severe bleeding to the 5 of them, but they had no complaints. After all, between precious resources and their lives, it was obvious that the latter was more important. Jian Wushuang took a huge advantage from the 5 of them, in addition to the interspatial rings that he obtained from all the Mu clan experts that he killed. Only the interspatial rings of Bai Tao and his companions were taken by Miss Xiao. It was safe to say that he had a massive gain from this trip. Narcissus Island, Pavilion of Divine Mystery. Jian Wushuang and his group who returned from Luogu territory were reporting the results of their task in the Pavilion of Divine Mystery. They failed to complete the given task. Although disciplinary elders were surprised by the outcome, they did not question any further. After that, Jian Wushuang went his separate ways with Xiaohang and others at the Divine Mystery Pavilion. Jian Wushuang had explicitly requested them not to spread the news of his strength as he did not want to be noticed. He preferred to be just an outer disciple in Narcissus Island while taking his time to slowly recover his strength. Xiaohang and his group agreed without hesitation. However, Elder Wujin was not about to allow Jian Wushuang to enjoy the calm and tranquil life that he anticipated. On the night that Jian Wushuang returned to Narcissus Island, Elder Wujin went to the outer court himself and found Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, what's the matter? I've heard about the task at Luogu territory. Although it was a little difficult, it should be easy with your abilities. How could you all fail? Elder Wujin frowned and sat down. He had received news from the Divine Mystery Pavilion that Jian Wushuang had failed in his mission. Elder Wujin paid particular interest in the mission as he had handpicked that for Jian Wushuang. However, the outcome was out of his expectations. Elder Wujin, you have had too high hopes for me. Even senior brother Xiaohang and the others couldn't handle it. How could I be of much help? Jian Wushuang derided himself. You kid, don't pretend in front of me. The others might not know you, but I do. Let's be frank about it. What's going on? Asked Elder Wujin. Jian Wushuang paused as Elder Wujin knew about his strength. It was not going to be easy for him to play dumb. Jian Wushuang replied instantly, Elder Wujin, let me tell you this. This mission is not as simple as you imagined. The second Miss Mu, which we were supposed to rescue, was not an easy one. The mission was not something that could be done effortlessly by me, senior brother Xiaohang, and the rest. Even if I tried my best, I'm still unable to do it. As for the specific reasons, it's not convenient for me to say anymore, but it will not take long before you find out. Elder Wujin frowned. Oh? A task which you can't solve even with your full effort. This is interesting. Did you say that the second Miss Mu is not as easy one? Now that's interesting. Do you want me to find out more about the second Miss Mu? Jian Wushuang waved his hand. No. Elder Wujin, this mission has nothing to do with Narcissus Island, so I advise you not to get involved. Otherwise, I'm afraid that neither you nor Narcissus Island could afford to pay the consequences. Elder Wujin's complexion changed slightly. Even Narcissus Island could not handle the consequences. Was it that severe and terrorizing? Elder Wujin smiled slightly. Fine. I'm not someone who purposely snoops around for trouble. Since you have said so, I will just put the matter at rest. I'll arrange a new task for you in a few days since you have failed to complete this one. Jian Wushuang shook his head again. There is no need for it. Elder Wujin, I know what I need most at this point, so please don't burden me with any task. If you mean well for me, you can help me find these materials, which I need for crafting something. Materials for crafting? Alright, what do you need? I'll get the people to immediately send it to you, said Elder Wujin with a smile. He did not take those crafting materials seriously because he had known Jian Wushuang was a middle-stage chaotic realm. He had never thought that a middle-stage chaotic realm would request for anything extraordinary. Narcissus Island was one of the top 10 sects among the many sects in the Wuxia wilderness. He could quickly come up with any common refining materials. Elder Wu Jian, you'd better take a look before you promise me. Jian Wushuang smiled lightly and took out a list. Elder Wu Jian took it and briefly glanced through it. His hands were trembling as he went wide-eyed. Jian Wushuang, are these the materials you are looking for? Elder Wu Jian's surprised expression was rather entertaining to look at. That was the list of materials needed to craft a life armor. Red Sun Secret Essence, Red Blood Fruit, Purple Shimmer, Spectacular Beast Scales, and Celestial Iron Oregon. Among them, it required 4 portions of Red Sun Secret Essence, 5 Red Blood Fruit, 2 drops of Purple Shimmer, 100 pieces of the Spectacular Beast Scales, 10,000 caddies of Celestial Iron Ore. Elder Wu Jian, is there a problem? Asked Jian Wushuang with a smile. Elder Wu Jian roared. Is there a problem? Of course, there is a problem. Jian Wushuang, do you know the value of these crafting materials that you are looking for? Red Sun Secret Essence, Red Blood Fruit, Purple Shimmer, and Spectacular Beast Scales. Which one of these were not nearly extinct in the Wuxia wilderness? Celestial Iron Ore is the only common material I see from the list, but you need a whopping 10,000 caddies of it. How on earth do I get hold of so many? Let's not talk about if we have all these in Narcissus Island. Even if they are available, I can't possibly single-handedly give them away. Elder Wu Jian was speechless. He had thought of using his authority as an elder to grant Jian Wushuang's wishes of getting any crafting materials that he needed. However, he was perplexed to see the list of materials that Jian Wushuang was looking for. So, you really don't have them? Jian Wushuang raised his brows. He did not look surprised. Elder Wu Jian, I really need these things. Forget about it if you don't have them in Narcissus Island. I hope that Elder Wu Jian will look around for me. If these things appear in Wuxia wilderness in the future, please tell me, said Jian Wushuang humbly. Elder Wu Jian nodded. Yes. My advice for you is not to have much hope, as for these things are not easily available even to a strong expert who is beyond the divine demon realm. An expert like that might be able to locate a thing or two out of the list with his influence. Still, it's almost impossible for you to get so many of them within the Wuxia wilderness unless you can get the Great Compassionate Sect to come forward. The Great Compassion Sect is the #1 sect in the Wuxia wilderness and has the deepest and strongest foundation. I think the Great Compassion Sect might have some of the materials you need. If you could make use of its influence to collect the rest of it, you may stand a chance to find them all. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded slightly as an idea sprouted in his heart. Nonetheless, Elder Wu Jian never thought that Jian Wushuang could do it. All right, Jian Wushuang, if you intend to be just an outer disciple, then you can carry on with your cultivation here. I'll make a move. Elder Wu Jian left. Jian Wushuang was lost in thought. The Great Compassion Sect. Only the Great Compassion Sect in the entire Wuxia wilderness could collect these crafting materials? Thought Jian Wushuang. If I had known this, I should have accepted the invitation from the county of Anzhou Commandery to join the Great Compassion Sect. Perhaps I could easily get hold of these materials, murmured Jian Wushuang. He was just toying with the idea of joining the Great Compassion Sect, as the fact remains that he was reluctant to do so. Jian Wushuang spent his remaining time as an outer disciple on Narcissus Island. With the support of many elixir pills and nature treasures, Jian Wushuang managed to very quickly recover his strength. Half a year passed in a blink of an eye. Narcissus Island was as calm as ever, but a major event happened in the Wuxia wilderness within the 6 months. The Mu clan was one of the strongest families in the Wuxia wilderness. Although it was only a family, in terms of background and strength it was no weaker than some second-tier sect. It might even be stronger. Such a family was relentlessly destroyed by someone. The interesting fact was that person who destroyed the Mu clan was none other than their second Miss Mu, Mu Xiaoxiao, who was taken away more than 10 years ago. The entire Wuxia wilderness was shaken up when the news was released, creating an uproar. Everyone was shocked by the action of this Miss Xiao. She was only 7 to 8 years old when she was taken away more than 10 years ago. She was not even 20 years old when she took the action against her own family. The naive little girl had attained such a terrifying power in just over 10 years and even destroyed the Mu clan in one blow. Besides, there was news that in the battle to destroy the Mu clan, there were more than 50 first-class divine demons backing Miss Xiao alone. There were also 8 peak-stage divine demons, and most importantly, there was also an ultimate god who took action for her. Ultimate gods were above the divine demon realm. Someone at that level was not a powerhouse in the vast ancient god domain, but that person was definitely at the world's top in the Wuxia wilderness. Ultimate gods were supreme experts of top sects in the Wuxia wilderness. The Lord of Narcissus Island, for one, was an ultimate god. The Great Compassion sect was the top sect in the Wuxia wilderness, and they had 3 ultimate gods, which was why they were extremely powerful. In the battle where the Mu clan was destroyed, there were a total of 3 ultimate gods who were part of it. 3 ultimate gods, 8 peak stage divine demons, more than 50 first-class divine demons, some second-class divine demons, and countless third-class divine demons were the force that destroyed the Mu clan. The power was so overwhelming that it was no wonder the Mu clan was smashed without any trace of resistance. However, such a terrifying force, which includes 3 ultimate gods, were completely subservient to one person, which was Miss Xiao. That was incredible. No one knew what Miss Xiao did to have so many supreme experts obey her. The only certainty was that the power in her hands was enough to stir up a storm in the entire Wuxia wilderness. Even the Great Compassion sect dared not underestimate the young lady's power. Many sects and supreme experts began collecting information about Miss Xiao. They sent people to watch over Miss Xiao's movements. Those sects were all worried about what possible acts Miss Xiao would do after destroying the Mu clan, such as annexing 1 or 2 sects and creating a new force to contend with the Great Compassion sect. In the eyes of many sects, that was completely possible, as the probability of occurrence was rather high. It was a pity that they had looked down on this Miss Xiao. Miss Xiao had an extraordinary background, and her vision was no longer on the small Wuxia wilderness. She had decided to destroy the Mu clan only because they had offended her. She could not be bothered to go against the other sections. Miss Xiao immediately left after smashing the Mu clan. She sent a message to Jian Wushuang when she left. Jian Wushuang, I'll make a move first. You can stay in Wuxia wilderness and slowly regain your strength. If you can't keep up with my pace in the future, then never look for me again. Upon receiving the message, Jian Wushuang shook his head and chuckled. Miss Xiao is clever, as she is a reincarnate with great power. It's only natural that her strength could recover very quickly, but I'm different. Jian Wushuang knew very well that even when he was at his previous life's peak, he was in the divine demon realm. He was only able to break through the divine demon realm using the reincarnation passage at the last moment. Besides, he was a perfect chaotic creature, and this identity made it difficult for him to accumulate divine power as compared to ordinary cultivators. Under those circumstances, it would naturally take a longer period of time for him to restore his power back to its peak. Even if his power was restored to its peak, he would probably be unable to quickly make progress in his realm. A perfect chaotic creature had terrifying combat power with the capabilities to contend against people of a much higher level. It is not an ability for cultivating power or progressing realms. What I want to do is to steadily fight step by step to the peak, and not just blindly pursue the realm with speed, muttered Jian Wushuang. Of course, that only mattered after he returned to divine demon realm. The main objective now was for him to focus on improving his realm. In the past 6 months, Jian Wushuang had recovered his power at top speed with cultivation resources and elixir pills to enhance his divine power. Just 5 days ago, he broke through again and achieved peak stage chaotic realm. The peak stage chaotic realm was equivalent to the great emperor realm of the eternal chaotic world. It was safe to say that Jian Wushuang had reached his previous life's peak power, or even stronger than that. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had long understood the laws. Hence, he could be considered a half-step divine demon realm, only half a step away from being the chaotic divine demon. At the same time, after Jian Wushuang broke through and reached the peak stage chaotic realm, he could start cultivating the second level of primordial void celestial body. With his previous life's cultivation experience, It would be an easy task, and as his divine body improved, his divine power would become more pure and refined. Half a year ago, I was only in the middle stage chaotic realm with the first level of primordial void celestial body, but my combat power was comparable to the first-class divine demons. In terms of overall power, I am afraid that only a few first-class divine demons could be my opponents. Jian Wushuang smiled. His divine power had reached a whole new level in just 6 months. Although his improvement was not small, it was not at a terrifying speed. Jian Wushuang was clear that in order for him to make unprecedented improvements was to cross over from the chaotic realm to divine demon realm. Firstly, the gap between the divine demon realm and the chaotic realm was huge. Secondly, which was also the most important part, once he reached the divine demon realm, his perfect chaotic creature would be truly complete. The advantages of being a perfect chaotic creature would be revealed to him one by one. That would be the real transformation. It's coming. It won't take long before I can truly reach the divine demon realm. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands together tightly as his eyes gleamed with anticipation. While Jian Wushuang was still secretly recovering his strength, something had happened in a towering palace at Narcissus Island. Almost all Narcissus Island's circle of elders were gathered in the palace, except for a few elders who had retired and rarely showed interest in what was going on. In the center of the palace seated a plainly dressed middle-aged man. He had stubbles on his face and was dressed in an ordinary shade of green. He was an elegant-looking man and seemed to be an affable person. The many elders who had gathered around, including the 3 peak stage divine demon elders, looked at the middle-aged man with awe and respect. The middle-aged man was the lord of Narcissus Island, and his name was Ling Gong. He was also the only ultimate god known to Narcissus Island. Then again, that was the public's common knowledge. It was unknown as to whether there secretly were other ultimate gods in Narcissus Island. Dear elders, you must have guessed the purpose of this meeting? Ling Gong's voice echoed gently. Lord, it's regarding the saint's tomb that's about to open? Asked the 7th elder. Ling Gong nodded. Indeed, it's regarding the saint's tomb. After 1,000 years, it's time for Saint's tomb to open again. This is not only a major event for Narcissus Island, but also for all the sects of the Wuxia wilderness. We are gathered here to meet and discuss which candidates to enter the saint's tomb. Like all previous events, Narcissus Island gets to send 10 candidates into the saint's tomb. In addition, there are 3 safety tokens available. Now, the crux is which 10 disciples shall we send into the tomb and which 3 disciples will be given the safety tokens. Fellow elders, you may voice out. The elders around started discussions immediately. Lord, there are known to be many opportunities in the saint's tomb. Hence countless Narcissus Island's disciples are eager to enter it. However, don't forget there are also great dangers in the tomb. Many disciples from many sects had been sacrificed in every single trip into the tomb. 3,000 years ago, Narcissus Island had also suffered a great loss of disciples. Therefore, we have to be cautious in selecting the best candidates. Those 10 disciples must not only have a certain level of talent and strength to gain benefits from the many opportunities in the tomb, but also possess the abilities to keep themselves alive, said an elder. Ling Gong and other elders agreed in unison. The saint's tomb was a place with many possibilities, yet it posed a great risk for the conquerors. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry could get in there. The candidates would be carefully selected and their strengths from many aspects would be considered in the process. Currently, Zhong Yi and Su Tong are the best among my core disciples in Narcissus Island. They are already first-class divine demons and also very talented. They must go into the tomb and should also each be given a safety token, said 7th elder. Zhong Yi and Su Tong? The elders nodded. The 2 disciples with the strongest power and talent would have to enter the saint's tomb, and there was no need to worry about their lives being endangered as they would be given the safety token. My personal disciple is rather good. I want him to have experience and learn a thing or two in the saint's tomb. Is it feasible? A white-haired old woman suddenly spoke. Everyone turned around immediately to look at the old woman. The old woman was the 2nd elder of the Circle of Elders. She was a peak stage divine demon and had high seniority. Her words carried a certain degree of weight and authority. Moreover, she was nominating her personal disciple, which was indeed not a bad choice. Her personal disciple was equipped with the conditions to enter the saint's tomb. Everyone agreed to it almost immediately after a short discussion. Among the core disciples, Xiao Heng seems to be performing well and has made rapid progress. He has just made a breakthrough some time ago and reached the second-class divine demons. He should be given a chance at the saint's tomb, said another elder. The other elders went into discussion again. Xiao Heng was indeed remarkable among the many core disciples of Narcissus Island. Besides, he had broken through and reached the second-class divine demons. Hence, the elders agreed after a brief discussion. Thereafter, some elders began to mention names. Those that were proposed and accepted by the elders as a candidate were core disciples. Without an exception, they were second-class divine demons with outstanding combat power. Soon, 7 places were filled while many elders were still in a heated discussion on who should take up the final 3 places. "Let me nominate someone." Elder Wujian, who was seated aside, finally spoke. Elder Wujian was one of the elders among the circle of elders. Although he had not taken up the elder's position for long, he had a right to speak. The other elders anticipated quietly for who he was about to nominate. "I want to nominate Jian Wushuang. I think he is qualified to enter the saint's tomb," said Elder Wujian. However, many elders around were doubtful after hearing him out. They were doubtful of the name Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang? Who is that? The name sounds unfamiliar. I don't seem to have heard of it. Is there someone by the name of Jian Wushuang among the core disciples of Narcissus Island? The elders were actively discussing. The elders of the Circle of Elders held very high status in Narcissus Island. They did not need to be bothered by many issues on Narcissus Island, nor did they pay attention to the many disciples on Narcissus Island. Occasionally, when those exceptional core disciples caught their attention, they would offer to recruit those suitable ones under their wings as their personal disciples. In other words, only the core disciples would pique their interest. They had never heard of Jian Wushuang. Apart from Elder Wujian, someone else also happened to know Jian Wushuang. The person was the 7th elder. When Jian Wushuang had just arrived on Narcissus Island, the 7th elder discovered that Elder Wujian had handed his elder's token to Jian Wushuang, an outer disciple. He was very angry, so he went to Elder Wujian and rebuked him. It was a pity that Elder Wujian turned a deaf ear to his advice. There was nothing he could do. Things were no longer the same. "Elder Wujian, will you stop fooling around?" The 7th elder's expression was cold as he expressed his sharp disapproval. The other elders were flabbergasted, including Lord Linggong. "7th elder, you said that Elder Wujian was fooling around. What was going on?" asked Linggong while looking down from his seat. "Lord and fellow elders, I'm afraid that you have never heard of Jian Wushuang. However, this is perfectly normal because Jian Wushuang is not one of the core disciples of the inner court. He's merely an outer disciple from the outer court," said the 7th elder. "What? An outer disciple?" The faces of the many elders turned ugly. Even Linggong frowned after hearing that. "Elder Wujian, is Jian Wushuang an outer disciple?" Linggong looked over to his direction. "Yes," Elder Wujian admitted. Linggong frowned deeper. "Although that young man is only an outer disciple, he is much more talented than many core disciples. It's no exaggeration to say that he is the most remarkable genius I've ever seen," Elder Wujian added. The 7th elder sneered. "What a joke! If he really has such a phenomenal talent as you said, then why is he just an outer disciple? The assessment for core disciples is always open in Narcissus Island. As long as he is capable, he could become a core disciple at any time. Yet, he still stays as an outer disciple, doesn't he?" Elder Wujian's expression changed slightly. The 7th elder was speaking the truth. As long as he passed the harsh test, Jian Wushuang could be promoted as the core disciple of Narcissus Island and he could attempt the test at any time. Jian Wushuang had never attempted the test. Many people would assume that Jian Wushuang did not attempt the test because he knew he had not achieved the ability to pass the test. In fact, Elder Wujin knew very well that Jian Wushuang did not want to be a core disciple. However, he could not say it out loud. All I want to say is that this young man is very talented. If he goes to the saint's tomb, he will definitely gain a lot, said Elder Wujin with a serious face. Ha! Gain a lot? Elder Wujin, I'm curious to know how you are related to the young man. I wonder if he is your illegitimate son, as the rumor which spread among the disciples? How could a dignified elder speak nonsense for the young man? The seventh elder snorted coldly. Are you crazy, Jean? Do you even hear yourself? Anger was burning in Elder Wujin's eyes. What? Was I wrong? The seventh elder stared down at Elder Wujin with sarcasm. You! Elder Wujin was furious. All right, shut up. Ling Gong finally spoke. His tone was gentle but firm. Elder Wujin and the seventh elder instantly stopped arguing. Seventh elder, you said that Elder Wujin was talking nonsense. What made you say so? Ling Gong glanced at the seventh elder. Lord and fellow elders, we all knew how dangerous the saint's tomb is. That's the reason we nominated core disciples who are from the second-class divine demons or even higher ranked than second-class divine demons. Do you know what Jian Wushuang rank is? Elder Wujian. I'll let you tell everyone the answer. The seventh elder smiled coldly. The other elders all had their eyes on Elder Wujian. Elder Wujian's expression sank, but he did not keep quiet. Lord and fellow elders, Jian Wushuang's realm is indeed lower. He probably has just broken through and reached the peak stage chaotic realm, but his combat power is exceptional. I dare say that his ability is by no means weaker than a second-class divine demon. The seventh elder sneered. Haha, you all heard him. Elder Wujin had the cheek to say that Jian Wushuang, a young man who just broke through the peak of chaotic realm, actually possesses the power of a second-class divine demon. Do you all believe him? I wouldn't trust a word he said. The other elders furrowed their brows slightly. The chaotic realm and the divine demon realm were too far apart. A peak stage chaotic realm and one who had just broken through was barely able to compete against an ordinary third-class divine demon. However, to be comparable to the power of a second-class divine demon was indeed impossible. Even if there was such a genius, it was not possible to happen in the small Wuxia wilderness. Elder Wujian, what is going on? Ling Gong looked over. Lord and fellow elders, I know that you may not believe it. Jian Wushuang would also never make a move to prove his abilities, but he truly possesses the power of a second-class divine demon or even stronger than that. I'll definitely let him into the saint's tomb, said Wujin in a somber voice. Definitely let him in? The expressions of the people around turned grave and they seemed to have been reminded of something. Elder Wujin, are you planning to use your special quota? The seventh elder squinted slightly and studied Elder Wujin's face. Elder Wujian nodded. Yes, according to the rules of Narcissus Island. As one the elder of the Circle of Elders, not only do I have an elder's token, but I also have a special quota to nominate someone to enter the saint's tomb. Although I only have one chance to use the special quota and will no longer have it in the future after using it, I'll use the special quota for the young man now. The special quota was the same as an elder's tokens and each elder had only one chance to exercise his right. It can be used to allow a disciple to enter the saint's tomb, regardless of the disciple's rank and strength. Once the quota was used, it would be gone forever. The saint's tomb would open up again and again, but the elder would no longer be able to nominate someone with the special quota. That was why the elders saw that as something absolutely important and would never use it without careful considerations. Yet, Elder Wujin was giving his quota away to Jian Wushuang. The seventh elder roared. Crazy, you must be crazy. Elder Wujian, do you know the importance of this special quota? You have just become an elder not long ago and there will be countless geniuses in the future, but you are giving both your elder's token and special quota away to the young man. Do you have so much confidence in him? Yes, I would put my trust in him. What can you do about it? Elder Wujian was not willing to submit to the pressure. He directed his gaze at Ling Gong again and announced solemnly, Lord, I recommend Jian Wushuang to the saint's tomb with my special quota. Could this be done? Ling Gong looked hard at Elder Wujian and then nodded. No one could object to you using your special quota to nominate him as a candidate. Not even me. Elder Wujian's eyes suddenly lit up. All right, now 8 places have been confirmed. Only the last 2 are left. Let's continue the discussion, said Ling Gong. The elders continued discussing, and soon, the last 2 slots have been determined. 10 candidates were identified and Jian Wushuang was one of them. Although Jian Wushuang had the qualifications to enter the saint's tomb, he could not get the safety token. Nothing could be done about it as there were only 3 safety tokens. Zhong Yi and Su Tong, who was recognized as the top 2 in talent and strength, each received one. The last one was given to a core disciple with stronger power but weaker life-saving abilities. Of course, there was nothing left for Jian Wushuang. After the candidates were determined, the elders left one after another. When they were leaving, they all gave Elder Wujian a strange look. The 7th elder could not help but ridicule Elder Wujian at every chance he got. Elder Wujian did not bother to pay attention to them. He went straight to the outer court to look for Jian Wushuang. Outer court, inside the courtyard where Jian Wushuang lived. Jian Wushuang. Elder Wujian appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Elder Wujian, it's rare for you to visit me. What's going on? Have you got news of those materials that I asked for your help to look out for? Jian Wushuang smiled and looked at Elder Wujian. The materials that you are looking for are extremely rare. How could I possibly locate them in such a short time? I came to see you today for something else. Jian Wushuang, have you heard of the Saint's Tomb? Elder Wujian had a straight face. Saint's Tomb. Jian Wushuang's heart shook. He stayed in the Blazing Moon City as a teenager in his current life and liked reading biographies which mentioned many special places in the Wuxia wilderness, dangerous places, and so on. At the same time, those biographies also recorded some peak experts. The Saint's Tomb was one of the places Jian Wushuang came across in a biography. I've heard of the Saint's Tomb. It seems to be a place where a Wuxia wilderness peak expert left behind a long time ago, said Jian Wushuang. Yes, but it's not a long time. It was only 300,000 to 400,000 years ago. At that time, Wuxia wilderness's situation was almost the same as now. The major sects were presented with the Great Compassion sect was still recognized as the top sect at that time. The only difference was that although the Great Compassion sect was extremely tyrannical, there was someone else with an even more terrifying existence in the Wuxia wilderness. That person's existence was so overbearing that even the Great Compassion sect was respectful of him and didn't dare to provoke the person. That person was the Crimson Stone Saint, said Elder Wujian. Jian Wushuang knew everything in his heart. He had read some legends about the Saint's Tomb and knew a little of the Crimson Stone Saint. Crimson Stone Saint. In order to obtain the saint title, he was naturally an undying saint. During the ancient god domain days, a cultivator first became a god, then a transformed god, pure yang, chaotic, and above the chaotic was the divine demon. Above the divine demon realm was the ultimate god. The undying saint was beyond the ultimate gods. Such an expert was regarded as someone prominent even in the entire ancient god domain. A real expert was highly regarded no matter where he was. An undying saint would naturally be the absolute powerhouse in the small Wuxia wilderness. Although the Great Compassion sect was great, an undying saint could easily destroy anything with a flip of his hand. Therefore, the Great Compassion sect naturally would be respectful of the Crimson Stone Saint. The Crimson Stone Saint was born in the Wuxia wilderness, but when he became a first-class divine demon, he left the Wuxia wilderness and went to roam the outside world. When he returned again, he was already a lofty undying saint and probably was the only undying saint born in the Wuxia wilderness in these hundreds of thousands of years, commented Elder Wujian admiringly. Undying saint had an immortal body and such cultivation level was hard to attain. There were countless cultivators in the Wuxia wilderness, but it was already considered good to be able to produce an undying saint in the hundreds of thousands of years. For some small territories, there might not even be one undying saint in millions of years. After the Crimson Stone Saint returned to the Wuxia wilderness, he stayed in the Wuxia wilderness for a long time, but his condition did not seem well. He was in a weakened state. At that time, Many experts in the Wuxia wilderness thought that the Crimson Stone Saint must have sustained serious injuries or been poisoned to the point of beyond salvation. He had only stayed in the Wuxia wilderness for a few thousand years. After a few thousand years, there was news that the Crimson Stone Saint had fallen. At that time, all the sects and countless experts in the Wuxia wilderness felt sorry for the Crimson Stone Saint. However, 300,000 years after the Crimson Stone Saint died, which was approximately tens of thousands of years ago, someone accidentally found the saint's tomb that he left behind. This saint's tomb was the cemetery of Crimson Stone Saint. He knew that he wouldn't live long, so he created it during the time he stayed in the Wuxia wilderness. He had accumulated many treasures and countless opportunities in his life and buried them within the tomb. After the saint's tomb was discovered, various sects of Wuxia wilderness and countless experts had gone crazy. Everyone was eager to enter the tomb and obtain the many treasures left behind. Unfortunately, the saint's tomb was specially prepared for the younger cultivators. There are restrictions in the tomb, and those above ultimate gods couldn't enter at all. Even peak-stage divine demons had to suffer quite a lot once they entered the tomb. Therefore, the only ones who could enter the saint's tomb were those below the peak-stage divine demons level. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's eyes strangely flashed. The Crimson Stone Saint knew that he was about to die. But before he died, he left behind a saint's tomb? It's also specially prepared for the younger generation. The purpose of him doing this was perhaps not merely for the benefit of the cultivator in his hometown. I'm guessing he was probably also looking for a suitable heir, mumbled Jian Wushuang under his breath. He had experienced many of those caves and tombs that were left behind by experts in his previous life. They usually had their personal agendas for leaving those caves or tombs behind. In many cases, they wanted to find a suitable heir. The Crimson Stone Saint was probably not an exception. Jian Wushuang even guessed that the saint had probably left part of his consciousness behind in the tomb. Elder Wujian, you came to me today and talked about the saint's tomb. Is the saint's tomb about to open? Asked Jian Wushuang. Elder Wujian nodded. Yes, the saint's tomb opens every 1,000 years, and it has been exactly 1,000 years since the last time it was opened. It will be opened again in a month's time. There have been discussions among the sects that each sect has some quotas on the number of candidates that could be sent to enter the tombs according to their strengths. Narcissus Island has 10 quotas. The Lord and Elders had a discussion of who would enter the tomb. You are among one of the 10. Am I? Jian Wushuang looked weird. He knew his identity of being only an outer disciple of Narcissus Island, and he had hardly shown his strength in front of people. There were not many people who knew of his strengths, and they would never spread the news. Under such circumstances, how could he possibly be nominated? Jian Wushuang knew that Elder Wujian probably fought for his place. Elder Wujian, although you are one of the elders of the Circle of Elders, the seats to enter the saint's tomb wouldn't come easy. It must have been a tough fight for me to be one of the conquerors, asked Jian Wushuang in a straightforward manner. It's not easy, but the effort pays off. Anyway, the candidates are now decided. 1 month later, you can go to the saint's tomb with the other 9 core disciples, said Elder Wujian. Although Elder Wujian did not say much, a sense of gratitude rose in Jian Wushuang's heart. Elder Wujian was indeed very good to him. Elder Wujian, although I've heard of the saint's tomb, I don't know much about it. I don't know what are the opportunities that lie within the tomb. Can you tell me about it? Asked Jian Wushuang. The saint's tomb was specially left behind by the Crimson Stone Saint before his death. There are countless treasures and opportunities, and they are roughly divided into 4 kinds. Elder Wujian began to narrate. Firstly, there are many nature treasures collected by the Crimson Stone Saint in his lifetime. There are various elixir pills, cultivation manuals, and secret skills that are scattered in every corner of the tomb. Although many of these treasures are extremely precious and rare, the saint's tomb has been opened many times since it was discovered. Many of those treasures have been collected, and there are only very few left in the tomb. It all depends on your luck to get whatever you could. Like the kinds of crafting materials that you wanted me to look out for you, there might be 1 or 2 of them in the saint's tomb, but they are well hidden and might be difficult to find. Jian Wushuang raised his brows. He understood that those treasures were scattered in random corners of the tomb, and since the tomb had been opened so many times, those easily found treasures would have been taken away. The remaining treasures that had not been found were hard to find. The second opportunity was the divine power ocean. Elder Wujian continued. There is an incomparably huge ocean in the saint's tomb, and the divine power ocean contains incomparably pure ancient gods' divine powers. A cultivator could get into the ocean and take up the divine powers within to level up his divine powers. As for his power improvement speed, it depends on the cultivator's divine power absorption speed. In short, being able to cultivate in the divine power ocean is better than slowly accumulating divine powers by yourself or to swallow some elixir pills. The effect is faster by many folds. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang looked interested. Ancient gods' divine powers? He recalled that, in his past life, he went to the ancient god divine pond to accumulate divine powers. The ancient god divine pond was transformed from a drop of an ancient god's divine power with the help of the formation skill. The pond was a great help to him. The ancient god divine pond that was merely transformed from a drop of an ancient god's divine power was already extremely helpful. It was not hard to imagine what the divine power ocean that was transformed from an ancient god's divine power in the saint's tomb could bring for him. I need to level up my divine power to restore my strength to its peak. The divine power ocean. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes as his strong desire was written all over his face. Elder Wujian continued. In the saint's tomb, there is a condition if you want to enter the divine power ocean. The condition is the purple amulet. The purple amulet is something unique in the tomb, and most of them are scattered among the outer area of the saint's tomb. There are quite a number of them in the outer area of the tomb, about hundreds of them at each time. One purple amulet could earn you a month in the divine power ocean. Therefore, any cultivator who entered the tomb would stay in the tomb's outer area for a period to accumulate as many purple amulets as possible. How many a person could collect depends on his luck. Usually, one could get about a dozen purple amulets, which allows the person to stay in the divine power ocean for a year. Even if one has extremely bad luck, it was still possible to get 1 or 2 purple amulets. The divine power accumulated from the ocean in the 2 months' time would be far better than cultivating it for years through blood and sweat. Jian Wushuang got all the information he needed. He was at the peak stage chaotic realm and was only 1 step away from the divine demon realm. He lacked the accumulation of divine power. Even with the aid of many elixir pills, it was estimated to take a year or 2, maybe even longer had he cultivated on his own using his usual way. If he could get to the divine power ocean, he could save a lot of time. The third opportunity in the saint's tomb is the inner area's 9 major tests, continued Elder Wujian. The 9 major tests were specially designed by the Crimson Stone Saint. Each test is challenging and not many could pass it through. However, if one could pass it, one would get the many opportunities that come along with those tough tests. The opportunities are some precious things such as weapons, secret skills, insights, and even inheritance. Inheritance. Jian Wushuang was surprised to hear that. You heard me right, inheritance. It's the Crimson Stone Saint's inheritance. He left his inheritance in one of the tests. As long as one passes the test, one would be able to gain several powerful secret skills that he cultivated during his lifetime, including the combat skills which he invented, some important treasures, and more. This is the biggest opportunity one could gain in the tomb. It's a pity that the saint's tomb has been opened so many times. I don't know how many geniuses have tried to overcome those tests, but they all failed miserably. The inheritance was still intact, but the other tests, initially there were 16 tests in the tomb. However, as the tomb has been opened again and again, some people have managed to pass 7 of the tests and collected the opportunities within. There are only 9 tests left, said Elder Wujian. Jian Wushuang secretly let out a sigh. After all, the Crimson Stone Saint was a super expert at the level of an undying saint. How could an ordinary person get his inheritance? The conditions of those tests must be extremely harsh. In recent years, there were not many geniuses produced in the Wuxia wilderness. That was probably why none had successfully attained the inheritance. Elder Wujian, you said that there are 4 opportunities in the saint's tomb, but you have only told me 3 of them. What is the last one? asked Jian Wushuang. The last opportunity? Elder Wujin paused before saying, It's Fengtian Scroll. Jian Wushuang frowned. Fengtian Scroll? What's that? Elder Wujin said, I don't exactly know what it is, but it must be very valuable as the scroll is hidden in the deepest part of the inner area. It will only appear at the last moment. It contains everything about cosmic mysteries and could bring a lot of benefits to cultivators. Every time the saint's tomb is opened, there will be 6 seats up for grabs to have a look at the Fengtian scroll. The 6 seats will appear one after another in the inner area. The genius disciples of all the sects in the Wuxia wilderness will frantically fight for the 6 seats. Fight? Do all genius disciples of the sects desire a seat? Asked Jian Wushuang solemnly. Yes, the Fengtian scroll is extremely useful for cultivators, but I'm not sure how. After all, I've never personally gone to have a look. The only certainty was whoever gets a seat to look at the scroll will greatly improve in their perception of the laws, understanding of the rules, and so on, explained Elder Wujin seriously. The perception of the laws, understanding of rules, and so on will be greatly improved? Upon hearing that, Jian Wushuang was a little excited. Most opportunities in the saint's tomb were merely an accumulation of divine power, which was just a matter of time to him. He did not care too much about them. The 9-step test of the inner area accompanied by the 9 great opportunities might sound appealing. However, it came with harsh conditions and there might not be things that Jian Wushuang wanted, so he was not very keen either. On the other hand, the Fengtian scroll was a different ballgame. Perception of laws and the understanding of rules were completely different from the accumulation of divine power. They were skills that needed oneself to slowly cultivate. It was heavily dependent on one's ability and might take up a lot of time. This Fengtian scroll could significantly improve the perception of laws and understanding of rules, which was an excellent opportunity for any cultivator. Jian Wushuang was no exception. It's such a great help. No wonder geniuses from various sects try their best to fight for a seat. Unfortunately, only 6 seats are available every time the tomb is opened. There are so many sects in the Wuxia wilderness, and the total number of genius disciples entering the tomb is probably a lot. With so many people competing for 6 seats, the competition will be extremely tough, said Jian Wushuang. Elder Wujin nodded in agreement. Indeed, it's tough. Every time the tomb is opened, genius disciples of various sects can gain a lot from it. At the same time, there are a lot of risks, hence many genius disciples will also die in the tomb. Their deaths were not only from the crisis they faced in the tomb but also from the 6 seats competition. It was a bloody fight every single time. Hence, the safety token is particularly important. The safety token which came from within the saint's tomb could only be used in the tomb itself. Once the cultivator crushes the safety token, that person who crushes it will be immediately teleported out from the tomb regardless of the situation. It's a life-saving tool when facing a life or death situation. Unfortunately, there are only 3 such safety tokens in Narcissus Island. Although I tried my best to get you a place to enter the saint's tomb, I can't get you a safety token. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. I'm grateful that Elder Wujin was able to get me a place. How can I expect more from you? Besides, the safety token is of no use to me. He was telling the truth. It also came from the confidence of him being a perfect chaotic creature which was not so easy to kill. At the same time, he had cultivated 2 secret skills, Primordial Void Celestial Body and Exquisite Pagoda. He also had a robust life-saving ability that was not to be taken lightly in addition to his recent breakthrough of Peak Stage Chaotic Realm and cultivated the 2nd stage of Primordial Void Celestial Body. Hence very few first-class divine demons were his match. Under such circumstances, all he had to watch out for in the saint's tomb were the possible dangers and risks within. The genius disciples from various sects who could enter the saint's tomb were first-class divine demons. Even the most outstanding disciples, 12 minor kings, were not his match, hence Jian Wushuang had nothing to worry about. He probably would not have any use for the safety token. Jian Wushuang, I've already told you what I knew. Here's the detailed information about the saint's tomb. You can read more to find out the remaining bits and pieces. Elder Wujin handed a jade slip to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang took it, glanced at it, and nodded slightly. All right, Take your time to study it yourself. I'll make a move. Elder Wujin left right away. Jian Wushuang began to browse the detailed information of the saint's tomb given to him. There was still a month before the saint's tomb opened. Within the month, not only Narcissus Island but the other sects in the Wuxia wilderness had also begun preparing for conquering the saint's tomb. A large number of genius disciples were looking forward to entering the tomb. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Narcissus Island. There were rows of figures standing on a piece of land. Those people were core disciples nominated to enter the saint's tomb from Narcissus Island. Zhongyi and Su Tong were the leaders. Zhongyi, a young man with a black robe, black hair, and a somewhat evil complexion, carried a sword on his back while standing there proudly. The other core disciples around him looked at him in awe. In terms of strength and power, Zhongyi was the best among the many disciples of Narcissus Island in this era. Although he was not listed as one of the 12 minor kings, he was infinitely close to the 12 minor kings in terms of strength and power. Standing beside Zhongyi was a fair-skinned girl in a white robe who looked a little weak. The girl had long hair hanging down to her waist and very delicate facial features. She could be called a rare beauty. Su Tong, the only genius in Narcissus Island that was comparable with Zhongyi in the era, might be slightly weaker than Zhongyi in terms of strength and power. However, she had tremendous potential in terms of talent. Junior sister Tong, among the many disciples who are going into the saint's tomb from Narcissus Island this time, you and I are leaders. When we get to the tomb, we have to work together, said Zhongyi. That's for sure. I don't have much experience and I'm not mature in dealing with matters, so it's best for you to make the decisions when we are in the tomb, said Su Tong bluntly. She was aware of her abilities and knew that the tomb was filled with dangers. Her safety was guaranteed with the safety token. However, most of the other disciples who went along with them were not given a safety token. Junior sister, don't worry. Although the saint's tomb is dangerous, we should be fine if we are careful. Zhongyi smiled. The other core disciples were also casually chatting with each other. Our people are all here, right? Who else is not here? The 9 core disciples have arrived. The one that has not arrived in the outer disciple called Jian Wushuang. Outer disciple? Indeed, he is only an outer disciple and merely at the chaotic realm. I heard that Elder Wujin used his special quota as an elder to fight for his opportunity to enter the saint's tomb. Many disciples in Narcissus Island were saying that Jian Wushuang has an extraordinary relationship with Elder Wujin. Is that so? Will we be burdened to enter the saint's tomb with someone at the chaotic realm? Perhaps, but we have to go along with it. Elder Wujin used his special quota on him, and he didn't violate the rules of Narcissus Island. Even the Lord couldn't oppose it. None of those core disciples attempted to lower their voices, so their conversations were loud and clear to everyone that was present, including the second elder and the 7th elder who led the team. The second elder's eyes were cloudy and her expression did not change at all. On the contrary, the 7th elder was seen sneering. However, there was one person who thought completely different from the others. All the core disciples, even the 2 elders, thought that Jian Wushuang was a burden. On the other hand, the only one among the core disciples who had faith in Jian Wushuang was Xiao Heng. These guys. Xiao Heng swept his gaze over at the core disciples who were talking and laughing before shaking his head. He could understand those core disciples because when he went for a mission with Jian Wushuang, he used to look down upon Jian Wushuang like the other core disciples. It was after that mission that outer disciple Jian Wushuang had become a monster to Xiao Heng. At that very moment, 2 figures came from the void with a swoosh. They were the duo Elder Wujin and Jian Wushuang. It seems we are the last to arrive. Elder Wujin appeared on the land and muttered to himself. Huh. Glad that you know. The 7th elder glared at Elder Wujin. Elder Wujin did not bother to talk to him. Instead, he ordered, Jian Wushuang, go on. Jian Wushuang nodded and emerged in front of the core disciples. I, Jian Wushuang, pay my respect to all you senior brothers. I'm sorry to have kept you all waiting. Jian Wushuang was humble and polite. Well, glad that you are not oblivious. Indeed, he belongs to the chaotic realm. The core disciples all stared at Jian Wushuang with a weird smile. None of them were willing to respond positively to him. Xiaoheng was the only one who stepped forward and said humbly, "Junior brother Wushuang, this time you and I are together again. I hope that junior brother can take care of me when we are in the saint's tomb later." "Oh? Senior brother Xiaoheng." Jian Wushuang raised his brows but did not say much. Xiaoheng did not mind either. The core disciples next to Xiaoheng all looked over at their direction in surprise. "Xiaoheng, when did you become so talkative? It's just an outer disciple. Does he even deserve your humility?" "Xiaoheng, this is so not you." The core disciples were teasing Xiaoheng. The core disciples who were nominated to the tomb were all among the best core disciples of Narcissus Island. Each of them was excellent no matter in terms of talent or ranking. They were not inferior to Xiaoheng, and some were even better than Xiaoheng. Hence they were communicating on an equal footing and did not refer to each other by seniority. They called each other by name instead. Upon hearing those ridicules, Xiaoheng was a little annoyed and said, "What do you know? Though junior brother Wushuang is only an outer disciple, he is different from the average outer disciples and has strong abilities. Did you just say a chaotic realm is very powerful? Xiaoheng, are you sure you aren't dreaming?" The core disciples continued teasing Xiaoheng without taking his words to heart. "Anyway, I've already said what I have to say. It's your business whether you believe it or not, and you will soon realize the truth after entering the saint's tomb." Xiaoheng curled his lips and did not bother talking to them anymore. "Well, it's time. Let's set off." The second elder, who was resting with her eyes closed, suddenly announced. "Yes." Even the seventh elder and Elder Wujin could not refute her orders. "Fix up the formation," ordered the seventh elder. At the sound of his voice, countless secret patterns appeared in the center of the land. A gush of majestic divine power emanated and a huge spatial passage appeared at the land's center in just a few moments. It was difficult to create a huge spatial passage as heaven and earth were stable. Some powerful sects in the Wuxia wasteland had the ability to create spatial passages, and Narcissus Island was one of them. Under the personal guidance of the three elders, 10 disciples, including Jian Wushuang, stepped into the spatial passage. With a flash of the dazzling light, when Jian Wushuang and the others reappeared again, they had already arrived in a large glade. When they arrived at the glade, there were already large numbers of figures there. They were the disciples from various sects of Wuxia wilderness and their elders who led the teams. They all instantly noticed Jian Wushuang and his group. "Are they disciples from Narcissus Island?" "Yes, they are from Narcissus Island. There are 3 elders and 10 disciples. The 2 disciples in the center must be the famous duo, Zhongyi and Su Tong. Zhongyi and Su Tong seem to be very capable. Especially Zhongyi, which I heard was comparable to those from the lower rank of the 12 minor kings." "Well, why is there a chaotic realm among the disciples of Narcissus Island? Is he also preparing to enter the saint's tomb?" "Haha! A chaotic realm entering the saint's tomb. How interesting." There were whispering sounds everywhere on the glade, and many people cast their eyes in the direction of the people from Narcissus Island. Most of the gazes were on Zhongyi and Su Tong, but some of them were on Jian Wushuang, making the other 7 core disciples less noticeable. However, they quickly shifted their gaze away. After all, there were many more geniuses on the glade beside Zhongyi and Su Tong. There are so many people around. Xiaoheng and the other core disciples were also checking around. There must be hundreds of people around here? Almost all of them are second-class divine demons. There are only a few third-class divine demons, Xiaoheng commented. Those that were preparing to enter Saint's tomb were mostly second-class divine demons' genius disciples. There were fewer first-class divine demons as compared to the second-class divine demons. However, the total number of first-class divine demons was around 40 to 50, and most of them were first-timers. As for the third-class divine demons, they were the least because they usually would not attempt to enter the saint's tomb. Jian Wushuang, who was a chaotic realm, was absolutely uncommon. He attracted so much attention due to his circumstances. Jian Wushuang, look in that direction. That red-haired man is the top genius of the Blood Mountain sect, Huoyang. He is also one of the 12 minor kings. He is ranked 10th among the 12 minor kings. Although his ranking is relatively low, he is very powerful. He once fought head-on with a peak-stage divine demon and lost the battle, which lasted for a long time. Elder Wujian stood beside Jian Wushuang as he was introducing Jian Wushuang to the geniuses on the glade. Jian Wushuang looked at Huiyang. So he is ranked 10th? Bai Tao seems to be ranked 11th. Since their rankings are close, I suppose their powers are of a similar level, murmured Jian Wushuang.